Hi, everybody, and welcome. I am so happy and excited because today is December 6th, and I'm doing Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, Level 1, Lesson 15. And as a brief note, so next week would be Level 2, Lesson 15, which is my teaching all about cancer as an interdimensional visitor. YouTube has swiped my videos and said that I am not allowed to talk about those things because it is medical misinformation. So I love Big Brother. I feel so silly saying that. Of course, I am totally serious in saying that and totally not using opposite talk at all. And the whole point is I wish to maintain my YouTube channel because it's had it for over 10 years, and I have so many semesters worth of really worthy lectures archived here. So that is my only reason for doing this minuet and tiptoeing gently over mud puddles and other things like that, of the unmentionables, as I clutch my pearls, of the things I'm not actually allowed to say. So if you want to find the stuff that's for level 2, lesson 15, I shared it on my Patreon. That is a platform that I'm not concerned about sharing that information there, and I want to make sure that it's out there, meaning available to you. And apologies, just trying to get my mouth active to be able to share my ideas today. You can still find it, but I won't be able to share it here on this particular platform. And then now for today's sharing, I know that you guys are ready for me to say, watch out, incoming rant, white hot rant of incendiary anger incoming, because I actually have to protect you a lot from the information that I shared 10 years ago. But as I was walking cheeky in the park before I did my class, before I came here today, and I was thinking, like, I actually don't feel a sense of white hot rage to fuel my rant. I actually feel a sense of profound, depressive despondency when I compare what I was teaching about 10 years ago to the situation and circumstance that we presently face in terms of motivational emotions. Anger is much more effective. You get stuff done when you're angry. You're like, I'm going to scrub, I'm going to sweep, I'm going to mop, I'm going to do stuff, I'm going to get this place into shape. But when you're just like, like a wet blanket, stuck in bed, you're just a heap of rags, you don't get that much stuff done. But that's just the honest feelings that I have in assessing what I was teaching about 10 years ago and then how I'm going to present that now. What do I mean by all of this? Because I can kind of feel from you guys who are like already destabilized. You're like, what are you talking about, Aurora? Why are you feeling sad or despondent? Also, you don't look sad or despondent. Here's my feelings. Here's my feelings are heavy. I'm like this, sigh heavily. Okay. So the original teaching from 10 years ago is still valid and wonderful and totally effective for a pristine environment. It's about the combination of two different aspects of your own self. In my teaching, I label them as organic and inorganic, but better terms, more accurate, are biological and purely energetic. You have a biological form, that is what I call your somatic cellular body. It's made up of a bunch of atoms and matter and living biological cells. And you also have an aspect of your body being that is purely ephemeral, purely energetic. It is made up of your consciousness and your emotional state and your non-tangible aspects of self that are purely an energy, spirit, soul, the things that you can't measure and weigh. And that could also be called your light body, your information, your data body. And that really, both of these two things, I could pull up in my pictures if you want me to. Both of these two things are seamlessly integrated, and they are different layers of your own body. And what I was teaching about 10 years ago was, so the inorganic self would be described as the purely energetic layers of your body. The organic self as being the self that is embedded in time, supported by matter and your material body, and requiring material resources. And I describe a beautiful partnership with common goals and common requirements of all of these aspects of your own body. My teaching, the true teaching from 10 years ago, is really about an increased partnership between you as a physical, embodied, biological life form and you as a non-physical, amorphous, flowing state, being of pure light, and how you're really in a wonderful partnership together. And sadness or heaviness that I have in sharing this information with you right now is you can't just be like, hey, let me partner up with my wonderful, beautiful, light collective chakra family of ascended mastery and flowing information and data, because you've got something inside of you that's not supposed to be there. And again, as I was alluding to, certain topics that are not to be spoken about. So I'm just thinking, well, lock and cheeky, I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to talk about something that I have to talk about kind of a lot. I don't want to have problems. I'm going to hold up a sign. This is the sign that of the things that I'm going to be talking about. I don't want to be like silly or make it difficult for you to absorb the information. That's why I didn't want to come up with some kind of a euphemistic word to have to keep talking about. But everybody's got this stuff inside of them. And this stuff is stuff that is not your true partner. This stuff is stuff that is not anything that you want to be guiding your mind or guiding your thought structure. This stuff is stuff that you not only want to get out of your body, you want to recognize it as not arising from you and carrying thought structures that also not only do not arise from you, but do not arise from the divine mind, and that you don't want those impulses in your neurology, in your mind, in your light body. There's stuff that you don't want in your light body. So my teaching from 10 years ago, and I'll go through it with you, but at the same time, I will contrast with what you actually need to be doing here and now, so that I want to make sure that you are not going to get hijacked or hijacked by something that is unsavory and is itself an aberrance that should not be in existence, or exploited, or think that something is an imposter, that it is actually a part of you and it is not actually a part of you. And that's where my white hot rants against shadow work come from, the sense of humans being exploited by a false assertion that something that is not actually you is a part of you, and that you must accept it, and then your tortures will end, and that your the imperative for you to accept something that's not actually you and internalize it as if it is a part of you is part of a larger fractal macrocosm of stuff that's not God, that is basically troubling God and saying, you better accept me, I'm a part of you. And that's actually, all of that is what percolates down to your right now individual experience of making a distinction and distinguishing between you, the real you, and this stuff that is not the real you. I got so much to talk about, but I'm going to just speak very effectively about this, and then also hopefully offer effective approaches, if not total solutions, because I don't want you to feel like, again, a pile of wet rags, like totally depressed and like hopeless. I don't want you to feel hopeless. I want you to feel like there is something you can actually do. So, okay, wait, pull up my notes. I did send out my notes as part of the email. And of course, I will diverge from them a lot. I have to squint just a little bit to make this so that I can read it. Okay. So the good part of what I shared about from 10 years ago is being in a divine partnership. And the idea that you have this aspect of yourself that, of course, you're very well acquainted with, your physicality presence and your somatic cellular body, that you are attempting to be kept alive in time, and you're trying to navigate through a series of possibilities. It's kind of like going through a maze or going through a labyrinth. And the idea is that you have this other part of yourself that is your higher self, and we are erasing the distinction and any kind of condescending judgment or low self-worth of like, my higher self is better and my lower self is crap. That's not true, because that's just been part of a paradigm that you're moving through that is totally erroneous from everything, the kill your ego school of spiritual advancement that says your ego is bad and wrong. And I am coming at this from a very different situation here. So clearly, because, okay, when I first came here as Aurora, I didn't technically have an ego. The previous occupant's ego had been destroyed. I had not yet built and constructed and sculpted the ego of the person that is here standing in front of you that's named Aurora. And I found that it was very, very difficult for me to share my information and my gifts and the things of value that I have with the world, because people actually need to have that interface. Ego is a positive in this world, necessary interface or self-story that you use to be able to interact with and share information with other organisms and creatures. And from that point of view, ego is something positive and necessary. It's like I have an epidermis that helps keep water inside of my body and protect me from stuff coming in that's not supposed to come inside. And that's totally proper and effective. Your biological ego level of self does not have, in this distorted world that I've come into, an effective and clear view of the labyrinth of time that you're trying to traverse. And so the help from higher levels of self, from the perspective of higher self, is essential, so that is actually what prevents you. I'm always going to have to do this. Here's my little sculpture. The lighting in here is just so dark, you can't really see it very effectively, but here's my sculpture. Navigating the labyrinth of time and being able to actually see where you are in this map and being able to then make effective choices in order to continue the longevity of your consciousness. So from 10 years ago, teaching and sharing effectively that you have a common goal. So this is where I have so much to talk about here, because there's the kill your ego school of spiritual advancement. And then there's also the like disposable body school of spiritual advancement. And I'm being like way too lighthearted because I don't want to be sounding as if I am diminishing these other valid viewpoints, but some viewpoints in your world state that in order to achieve spiritual attainment, you must disassociate from your physical presence, from your physical body. People often sometimes even chant, I am not this body is not me. And that then in the death experience, separating the purely energetic, which would be ephemeral, human words, spiritual or soul or consciousness oriented aspect of yourself, going to separate that away from the physical stuff, leaving the physical materials of your being behind, and then only the energetic parts of your being moving onward towards spiritual advancement. I talked about this with you last week, and in sharing about my journey of being a walk-in and being in a body that actually experienced a death experience, and how this generation is different than other generations, that you do not have to have a mortality event in order to reach your spiritual attainment. And so I am giving you a roadmap and directives for this unique time, that maybe it's best to say that those other spiritual traditions might have been appropriate or whatever, good clothing for that time. Weather has changed, styles have changed, you're in a different context now, you don't have to have a mortality event. And I encourage you not to disassociate from your life. I encourage you, because disassociation is like if someone is like stabbing your hand with a knife, and you're like, oh, that's not really my hand, this isn't really happening, but it turns out it really is your hand, it really is attached to you, and it's really happening. The disassociation that spiritual traditions attempt to cultivate in you, so that you say, this physical form is not who I really am, and that then you kind of like separate out, and that you supposedly fly onward towards freedom, is being exploited and hijacked. That tendency towards what I would label as spiritual escapism a little bit is being totally hijacked by that is invading the human body. That this stuff comes inside of the body and does all sorts of things, not merely creating uncomfortablenesses. Some of it is outright torture. Some of it is physical torture. Some of it is mental, emotional, psychological, ego-based torture. Sometimes it's spiritual torture. Some of it is diseases, discomfort. Some of it is actual like zapping pain. Some of it is anxiety pain. But basically that stuff has made your human experience unbelievably uncomfortable. And it also so it's not just like encouraging you, like a knife is piercing your hand, therefore disassociate from your hand and pretend that it's not happening. That's part of it. But there's also the value system, worldview, and ideology that this stuff puts into you, into your mind, your thought process. And it does that in several ways, because I can hear you wondering about this. Like, how does that happen? Did these things talk to you? These things are an alternative antenna, alternative to your natural central nervous system, your natural DNA, your natural antenna that receives information of divine intelligence from the source of all information that you're actually supposed to be receiving. It's an alternative antenna that hasn't always been there, that's been slowly implanted in humanity over the past 10 years, but then really turned on over the past 2 to 3 years. So part of it is you might receive synthetic signals. And those synthetic signals are both verbalized telepathy, but also flashes of imagery, implications, how you interpret an abstract situation or how you interpret a social situation. So basically hijacking the salience aspect of your brain, your neurology. So you have an area in your brain that is connected to salience, which is the imbuing of meaning, interpretation structure, how you are interpreting the raw information that comes to you in the world and building a story out of it. Because of course, if you were a horrible parasitic invader that wanted to destroy lives and destroy the world and destroy time and destroy God, you would get into people's salience centers and try to distort or influence the meaningfulness of what they are perceiving. So like I'm looking at the sky today, the sky is blue, and we could say the sky is blue is an objective truth that we can consensually agree on. Consensually here, not in terms of consent, but consensus. We consensually all agree the sky looks blue today, but what we might not agree on is the story about why the sky is blue, or what makes the sky blue, or the significance of the blueness of sky. And so that's what you're experiencing right now. 10 years ago, you were not experiencing this. They hadn't yet flipped the switch and really turned this on. Now it is the spiritual battle of your existence, to be able to separate the true signals of divine intelligence and the true signals of longevity and coherence that bring you towards your destination here, towards this wonderful culmination up here and away from the membrane of death. That's the stuff you want to be listening to. That's your true GPS and God positioning system. And then there's this other stuff that is literally trying to bring you to the membrane of death. It is literally trying to misinform you and miscontextualize what you are perceiving, and being an antenna and a receiver of death signals, signals that make you die. And so some of that is about your life choices. Very, very poor life guidance. This stuff will give you very, very poor life guidance. This stuff also masquerades as religious figures. There's a definite Jesus flavor to some of the masquerade false impersonators, I should say. It impersonates spiritual/religious guidance. This is the ultimate challenge that you face because you're coming out of the age of Pisces. I've taught about this in this class quite a lot. The Piscean age, age of Pisces, age of the externalized authority figure over the past 2,000 years. That can be abdicating your power to a king, a queen, a pope, whatever, a judge, a high school principal, someone other than you is in charge, and it's someone at the top of a pyramid-shaped hierarchy, and they are the person that tells you what to do. Like, here are the 10 commandments on this tablet. Listen to me and follow these 10 commandments. That will make you a good person. Or I'll do this and you will graduate from school. Or do this and you will be accepted and go to whatever Christian flavored heaven. And the age of Aquarius, you can sing that song if you want to. Although usually we wait until we've been in class for 3 hours before we start singing show tunes. Yeah, I can tell. Patricia is totally ready. Aquarius. The age of Aquarius is the age of self-responsibility. It is the age of listening to your inner directive, instead of a pope telling you, follow these commandments, and then you will go to Christian flavored heaven. You listen to your heart. You listen to your own conscience. You listen to your own moment to moment higher self guidance about what is right in each circumstance. And it is the next level of advancement of what it is to be embodied in the world. Just like when you go through levels of evolution and development as a human, like when you're a child, like you're an obedient child and you listen to your mommy and your daddy and they tell you what to do. And then you become a rebellious teenager. You're like, you don't know anything and you don't own me. I'm doing my thing. And then you become an adult and then you're like, well, there was some wisdom from mommy and daddy. And then I shouldn't throw everything out the window and I'm in charge of myself now, but I might still need a little bit of help. You are going through similar fractal macrocosmic levels of evolution on a soul level, where initially you might say, I'm a good boy or a good girl, and I'm going to listen to what religious and spiritual externalized leaders or an externalized God tells me to do. And then at a certain point, which you might be going through, you might be in your FU rebellious stage. Perhaps you would need to get a spiritual mohawk or some other outrageous hairstyle in order to distinguish yourself and to say, I'm not listening to any of your junkola anymore. And going 100% on your own independence and your own willpower. And then, of course, like, you might return to the wisdom of people that you've interacted with in the past. But what I'm trying to say is the age of Aquarius is the age of self-reliance. It is the age of no longer relying upon an externalized authority figure. It is essential for you to make sure that when you are doing your self-reliance and your innate divine connection and listening to God within, you're actually listening to God within and not this stuff within. That's what is so, actually, I do have some white hot rage. That's good, because that's what really makes you motivated to do stuff. But because that makes me really, really angry about that. But this stuff is trying to impersonate God in all of its different ways. So they literally call it V2K, or voice of God technology. And it is more than just an annoyance in your mind. Like if there was just a random voice in your mind that said whatever, any word salad, you'd be like, that's just a bunch of stupid words. How annoying. I wonder where that came from. But it's not just stimulation of your language centers. It is stimulation of your language centers and also stimulation of your salience centers or network of how you interpret contextual relevance, meaning, and whether things are important to attend to. And also, just collecting my thoughts for a moment, it can influence your biochemistry and your neurons to make you think that you should, that it is authoritative. There are places in your brain or actual cell, specialized cells that are about listening to authority. This is why your monkey mind is based in, it's called primate hierarchy. I feel like I have to apologize to you. I'm just trying to get my articulation into good order here. But yes, so not every species has a hierarchy in its social dynamics. Some species require complex social dynamics in order to survive. That means you need to live in community and you need to have stuff from other people and give stuff to other people. And this is a mammalian trait. Mostly the reptilians are not busy living in community and interacting in this way. But mammals have hierarchies, because they live in community and rely upon their community members. And a lot of the hierarchy has to do with, who do you listen to? Who is in charge? Who is the leader? And this is not something that is taught the way that I'm teaching, like Professor Air Quotes in front of an invisible blackboard and saying, this is how you choose a leader and this is who you listen to in your community. This is stuff that is part of, it's baked into the biology of the body that you inhabit. Cell specialization. So the first set of cell specialization in your brain when you're a little tiny baby infant, you need the approval of your parents. everything that you do, and there are cells that literally are about receiving approval from mommy and daddy, specifically from mommy. If mommy makes a face like this, then your cells light up as a little tiny infant. Like you don't even know how to control your doo-doos yet, but you're doing this complex maneuver of figuring out whether you've pleased your mom. And then if your mom makes a face like this, then you internalize on this cell specialization level. You're like, oh, that was definitely a no-no. I should not do that again, even though you're a little tiny baby that can't even crawl and control your body yet. Cell specialization. And then that cell specialization and the pathways and the postures, the social postures that requires of you throughout your whole entire life. You can be trying to please your mom and your dad and you're like 59 years old. You got it? And I think that some people who are watching this video right now are kind of like laughing heartily. They're chuckling inside of themselves. I think you can relate is what I'm trying to say. And there's nothing bad or wrong about this at all, but you just got to make sure, because like you go through your rebellious teenage years, you kind of figure out like mom and dad don't always have their SHIT together. They don't really know everything. And sometimes it is good not to listen to them. Sometimes it is good not to get their approval, and not just through random hair violence, like getting a mohawk or something like that. But yeah, sometimes it's good to go against the wishes of your parents, because what was right for their generation isn't what's necessarily right for your generation. And in those moments, what you have to do is go against your biological imperative. And why do you have that biological imperative to please your parents? Because otherwise, like if you're a tiny infant and if they don't feel that way, they will kill you. That's what like reptiles do. They're or you know what I mean, like this young iguana displeases me, I will eat him. He is extra calories or whatever, like the spiders that hatch and then they eat their mother. They're like, oh great, a food source. Like these are not mammals, but they don't have the same emotion-based paradigms that control their behavior, is what I'm trying to say. What is right and wrong in their world, and their moral imperatives are different than what is right and wrong in your world. I mean, I want to say like parents wouldn't really kill their child if their child annoyed them, but you understand what I'm talking about. In a biological evolutionary sense, it is essential to integrate with your immediate generational caregivers so that they give you care and so that they don't leave you to be exposed on a rocky crag somewhere because you're crying, pooping, and making a mess. Those same cells are the type of cells that seek approval from larger organizations, larger, I guess we would call them patriarchal, even though sometimes that's just not the right word, but parental, you know what I mean? Anything that's going to be kind of like a parent to you. So it might be the high school principal, or it might be a religious leader, or it might be a government agency. If you want to know why do humans acquiesce their power to these larger power structures, because it's biological inside of yourself, and it is at times a pro-survival mechanism. But if you acquiesce your power to something that is unsavory, or to something that is self-serving, or to something that is purely malevolent and wants to exploit or destroy you, then that's a very, very poor move. So in the teaching from 10 years ago, what I share about is the sense of how your neurology even functions. Getting my whiteboard, it's time to go to the whiteboard. So thoughts, whoa. Okay, now I'm gonna have to organize my thoughts here before I can even effectively communicate this to you. How do humans view thoughts? Humans view thoughts as like a point A to point B linear thing. I'm just trying to like, okay, wait, and someone needs to come into the meeting. I can't press a button. Pressing a button. Good. A thought as it is how do humans perceive thought? What is actually a thought? A thought is, in actuality, a patterned vector throughout your brain. So what I should do is draw a brain. This is your midbrain. This is one of your hemispheres. This is your other hemisphere. There you go. And well, let's start from the back. All right. So here's your cerebellum, and then here's your spinal cord going on down like that. And then here's the bridge that connects your left brain and your right brain. And so, wow, what is a thought and how does a thought occur? Now I'm going to draw something else. You're like, Aurora, are we playing tic-tac-toe? What's happening here? Help me. Don't be afraid, guys. Okay. So human neurology says, oh, and then another person is coming into the meeting, says, this is a thought, a neural signal that goes from point A to point B. Wait, come on, pen. And, takes this crazy route. That's a thought. And that is semi-accurate. Over here, what you have is a trellis that is an energetic trellis. This over here, this is an energetic trellis or structure or framework that is energy. And that is the energetic framework that is supposed to come to us and be available to us as part of our beautiful partnership, divine partnership with higher self, highest self, to give structure to our thoughts. Because your thought is kind of like a trailing vine. Like if this is a tomato vine, if you guys have ever grown tomatoes, if you don't give them a support, like they will just sprawl all along the ground and then kind of like go on top of themselves and then grow all over, be kind of like, a giant tomato thing. And then with the actual flowers and fruits, like you might have one tomato that's down here and then a worm is going to crawl in there because that's on the ground. And then you have another one over here, but it's kind of getting squashed under the weight of all this other stuff. Like it is not the most effective, efficient way for the plant to grow, but it grows that way when there is not structure and when there is not guidance. And so you get animal attack, insect attack, more rot, more pathogens. It's not the best way to actually grow. But when you give like a rose or a tomato a trellis, then the plant takes that support structure and is able to grow in these positive shapes that facilitate not only positive aeration and getting it away from insects, but also the positive formation of the fruits of the plant. This diagram here is essentially divine partnership or partnership with highest self, wherein the purple, let me just grab a color here. The purple framework is the ephemeral, purely energetic aspect of your own higher self that gives guidance to the part of yourself that is biological and organic. Now, the part of you that is biological and organic is analogous to the activity of an electron in an atom. In an atom, electrons exist in a probability shell, and that is because although they are a tiny particle, they are moving in such an extreme manner that really the only way that you can effectively talk about their position is to say that it is in an area that it's not in exact space-time coordinate. Basically, they're so energetic, you can't pin them down to one position. They exist in a probability cloud in an array of possible positions. And that's part of their unpredictability and part of the strength of what they are. You're like that. I'm talking to organic, biological, somatic, cellular ego self. You are like that electron. You're all over the place and highly energetic. Think about like the creative aspect of what it is to be a human. Think about the creative aspect of biological life and biological reproduction. Think about the inevitability of how plants grow. Like I'm sure that you guys have had the experience of walking along and through a sidewalk or a parking lot, and then there is the crack in the pavement and the inevitable dandelion that's growing up through there. You're like, wow, look at that. Like plants grow up through anything. That's what I'm talking about. The incredible strength and resilience of the natural biological realm, its unpredictability, and its tendency to do things in weird places and in weird, unpredictable, surprising places and in surprising ways and in surprising times and that's just the part of who and what it is. So you as embodied humans, like this also speaks to mommy, daddy, the bigger existential questions, like, why am I here? How did I get here? Why in the world? Because you came from beautiful, ephemeral, angelic places, like what's printed on my fabric here. Like, why in the world would you downgrade? Why would you go from first class, right, to like, whatever regular class in the airlines? You're like, no, I like first class. Yeah, why in the world would you want to be in a body that has vulnerabilities or challenges or diseases or discomforts or any of those things, or even just being less powerful? And the answer to that larger existential question of why even become embodied in the biological realm is the biological realm has an enormous amount of energy and an enormous amount of potential for you have creative energy. But think about a plant, like if you have a sunflower, then you have the sunflower, has one head, it's going to get pollinated, it's going to make hundreds of seeds. Like, why this effusive proliferation? Why this abundance in nature? And the answer is because not 100% of those seeds are going to grow successfully. Not 100% of those seeds will germinate effectively. And not 100% of those seeds contains correct genetic materials and potentials for life. So you're working in batting averages. You're like, let's just make a lot. Just make a lot. Something is going to work out from all of this. And that is the approach of the biological realm. Again, it's analogous to the tomato plant or sprawling vine that just grows. It just grows a lot, and it grows inevitably. It's like, I'm going to grow no matter what. Put down pavement, put down, that anti-weed barrier in your garden. It's like the weeds are laughing. They're like, we're going to grow anyway. We're going to grow anyway. Put down your stupid plastic barrier. That's positive. You want that going on. But on the other hand, it's an enormous amount of not wasted, but non-directed energy. And when you look at the realm of pure energy, so it's, I guess it may be a little bit not nonsense to say this, because you're like, wait, you're telling me that the realm of biology has more energy than the realm of pure energy? And I'm saying yes. Because you think that's kind of a little bit weird, maybe. Like, how come an angel that's made out of pure energy doesn't have more energy than an embodied human that, has, so many biological challenges? Why is that? So because I'm using the word energy, and then I'm also using the word energy. So a purely ephemeral spirit being, a light being, is not in the physicality. Physicality is where you will have an enormous amount of this creative life force energy for the empowerment of making stuff happen. And the world of pure energy that a pure energy being inhabits is a world where everything is largely already established and has already happened. Like, there are already established patterns, or a painting that's already been shellacked and top coated. It's done, and it is what it is. And humans and the embodied biological realm experiencing the embodiment of time are still in that juicy sense of all the things that can happen. You can relate this to my own journey as Aurora. Like, why am I not, again, sitting on an interdimensional cloud doing the backstroke? This is me backstroking through the clouds and wearing a long white dress, possibly like eating a strawberry, and then continuing onward as I swim through like whipped cream clouds. Why am I not doing that? Why am I doing this hard stuff here? How can I go to the store and buy toilet paper and coffee and pay my Geico bill? Why do I do all this stuff? And the answer is because I have capacitations and things that I can do here in my physical body and being in the physical world that I couldn't do in the non-physical world. There's stuff that you can do from the embodiment point of view that you can't do from the non-embodiment point of view. And that this is why you want to have the partnership, because you can get SHIT done. You've got a lot of juice, but also you don't know SHIT and you don't know where you're going or what to do or what's going to happen. And that's the positive partnership from 10 years ago, that you have a higher self, highest self, divinely connected self, PS or God self. From that elevated viewpoint, you can see everything and you actually do know SHIT. And then you're like, I can see what's going to happen, and I can anticipate what's going to happen, and I can communicate and guide my biological self through these event structures so that my biological self stays alive. That is the partnership. Like, why in the world, why even be in a partnership? Like, why even be in a partnership? And the answer is it helps everybody to stay alive. And the coherent aspect of your aspect of your body of pure light to maintain its coherency and to maintain its structural integrity of events, and also you as a biological organism maintaining the structural integrity of your biology. You both want to stay alive. And this partnership is what is being hijacked and peed and pooped upon by this right here, because this only usurps and repurposes pre-existing stuff that is good. This doesn't have creative life force energy. This is not in any way equivalent to the beings of pure light, that family, coherent light family, yourself in a higher dimension. None of that is this. That stuff that is you, that is spirit and soul and pure energy and pure light, is not this. But this thing, again, is like an imposter, and also something that is cunning or crafty in its capacity to repurpose and hijack and utilize biological pathways and tendencies that are positive in their tendencies. So like your initial tendency to be a good child and listen to your mommy and your daddy is good. It helps keep you alive. It has led to successful multiple generations of humanity as a species, right? And successful offspring as a, continuing to make the species be in existence. But that you shouldn't listen to this as if it is your parent. This is big stuff. So this stuff stimulates your brain. This stuff is an artificial brain within your brain. And your brain makes these various complex patterns of neurological impulses throughout your cellular structure, and also light, which is data, which is information throughout your cellular structure. And that is what you're supposed to be thinking when you have this artificial network that is then superimposed or implanted within, woven throughout your naturally occurring neurological structure. It says, listen to me. It says, I'm your parent. It goes into all of those specialized cells that tell you to listen to your mommy and daddy, whether mommy is smiling or frowning. And it becomes the thing that you have to please. And that is like, this is why you should be white hot anger, but you might feel just like melting into hopeless depression, because that is definitely not good stuff that is going on here. It is very distressing. That should be extremely distressing for you to recognize that that is what's going on, because I can hear you kind of be like, well, what am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to listen to? I'm supposed to listen to the God within, but then I have this other thing inside, and I'm like, yes, that is exactly the challenge, unfairness, and crapitude of the situation that you presently find yourself within, and why I have to make certain that nobody listens to my teaching from 10 years ago without recontextualizing it for what you're presently experiencing. Maybe I designed like exactly a lightweight flowing gown 10 years ago, and today there is like snowy tundra outside, and if you wear my dress from 10 years ago, like, you will get frostbite and die. And so I have to make sure, like, no, this is the protective parka, this is this season what we're wearing, and this is what you need, a giant parka and long underwear to protect you from stuff that will kill you otherwise. So there is now I do the real talk, and this is, I mean, I don't always share about this. That's why I needed to make certain that there's some way I can share this information with you effectively without being deplatformed or diminished, because the thing that controls the search algorithm and AdSense and all these other things is connected to this stuff over here. You got it? Which is why I jokingly said, like, how much I love Big Brother, because Big Brother is the thing that's trying to hijack your approval specialized cells in your brain. Ideally, you would be in a survival partnership, pro-survival partnership with your own highest self, where your highest self gives you moment-to-moment, real-time guidance about everything, about what you should think. That's if we go back to this, hold on a second. Because the human mind, and it is a flawed mind, is largely associative. So that means you bounce from thought to thought. So let's do this. Let's say this is just an abstraction of what human mind is. Here's like thought impulse 1, and then here's thought impulse 2, and then here's thought impulse 3. And what happens is, I'm sure that you have experienced this as a person with a brain. So the first thing that happens is you think a thought that could be started from any level of stimulation or no level of stimulation, but then you associate. So the first thing might be like, oh, I hear the sound of rain outside. And that's your first thought, stimulation of the sound of rain. And then what you do is you bounce, you associate to maybe, I remember another time that I heard a sound similar, or I remember another time that it was raining. Then you're in this thought structure here. And then from that structure there, then you bounce to the next place where you're like, oh, and then I remember that this other thing happened. And it could be totally disconnected, but just your mind makes a connection. And you bounce to the next thought structure. And then there was a purple unicorn there, right? Whatever. It's your brain takes, not your brain, your thought structure and your mental cognitive processes as they presently stand take a very labyrinthine route to get to their destination. This thought structure over here did not go from here directly to here. It did not do that. It bounced all around. Like literally, I want you to begin watching your mind and recognizing the behavior of the natural behavior of your mind. And then also, of course, anyways, that it might be unnaturally influenced, but the natural behavior of your mind is nonlinear and associative. It's nonlinear. Linear mind is totally not who you really are in your natural neurological functioning. If you are extremely let me start my sentence again. In your natural associative thought patterned behavior, as you are thinking, you might be thinking in very inefficient patterns, and that those inefficient patterns are analogous to the tomato vine that just sprawls all over the ground. You're like, I thought of a thing, I thought of another thing, it reminded me of another thing, and then it reminded me of this, and then a purple unicorn, and that just is like, it's very inefficient. You're creating a ton of extra like vegetation, a lot of extra stems and leaves that you don't actually really need, and not really getting anywhere. The ideal of what I'm proposing is that your higher self guides you in each moment to think the correct thought. So first you would think this thought, and then your higher self would literally guide you to think the next thought that's going to be a productive thought, a productive, coherent, life-affirming thought, and then another thought over here that it will lead you to. That is the positive, appropriate, healthy, divine partnership. And none of this has anything to do with technological mind control via this. But the technological mind control is what you are presently facing and what I have to warn you against and what I want to empower you to act effectively against, so that you're in control of your own willpower. So my stuff from 10 years ago could easily be hijacked. Say, yeah, let go of your willpower, stop choosing your own thought structures, let something else choose your thought structures for you, let this stuff choose your thought structures for you. I'm like, no, whatever you do, don't let this stuff choose your thought structures for you, because this stuff will choose your thought structures for you that will make you go directly to the membrane of death, directly to the membrane of death, directly to the membrane of death. That stuff, and this is just like, I mean, you can always set a boundary. You don't have to say why. No is a complete sentence. If you can, so this is, if somebody asks, like, would you like to have this implanted inside of you? You could just say, no, I don't. No, thank you. But you can also say, no, I don't want this inside of me, because this stuff and all of its thoughts, all of the energy impulses and the way that it has an impact upon my flight through time brings me to death, as opposed to bringing me towards longevity and coherence, the eternal life, eternal existence. So when you are guided by your higher self from thought form to thought form, it is for the purpose of staying alive. Now, you may also sing that song by the Bee Gees if you want to. Higher self has an important, oh, I love that you're even disco dancing. Thank you for dancing for me. Yes. We need that. Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I got like a little bit destabilized by the disco dancing. You have a common goal. Common goal is to keep your biological architecture alive. Why? How come your highest self, light body, doesn't just be like, who cares about your biological architecture? Don't drink, don't eat, don't use the toilet, fall over and die. Why doesn't it do that? And the answer is because your biological architecture is essential to the maintenance, longevity, and coherence of your chakras, of your non-physical body. So your non-physical body predates and pre-exists the formation of your physical body. But your physical body then sustains and nourishes your non-physical body. And at a certain point, your non-physical body is, again, coherent enough to exist without the anchor of the physical body in matter, without the need for the biological architecture. But at this moment, everybody needs your biological architecture. You actually need a body. And this is big because in all of these schools of spirituality where it says, I'm not my body, get out of your body and die. What happens to your non-physical presence when your physical presence dies, when you don't have biological architecture to inhabit anymore? And so that's very, very big stuff. Because if you haven't successfully built your raft, you're not going to sail the oceans of pure consciousness very effectively. So getting rid of your physicality structure body when you don't yet have your thought form body effectively structured and like glued together means your consciousness is not going to have coherence. Your consciousness is not going to be able to continue an eternal journey. You need to have enough, I want to say, time in your body. You need to have a healthy body that is sustained in time so that you can have the life experiences and ingest the emotional energy, ingest and generate the emotional energy that is necessary to continue to propel your consciousness on your eternal journey. So you have a reason for having a physical body. That's what you can ask this question to all of those schools of thought. Like, if having a purely spiritual body is better than having a physical body, why in the world am I in this physical body? Why did I do this? And the answer is, you did this for a reason. You got into, like, imagine someone who had doesn't own a house and then buys a house. You buy a house and you're like, ugh, I got to maintain the roof. And then I have to do this thing with the water line and everything is very expensive and very difficult. And I have to mow the lawn and blah, blah, blah. Why did I even do this? And the answer is because you needed a place to live in the physical world. And it's actually incredibly valuable for you to buy that house. So yeah, every one of us that has a physicality form and that we are here having this experience, the physicality form is incredibly valuable. And so there is an inversion in this low sense of self-worth that has been artificially implanted upon humans right now, where you feel like you're not good enough in the physical body and you feel like everybody who's out of their body is better than you. You feel like, oh, like all of these ascended masters and everybody who's transcended the physical, and they're all better than me. And why am I so lowly? And why do I have to eat food and use toilet paper? And why do I have to have skin moisturizer and all these different things? And it's artificial. That's as artificial as some of the other things. Sorry, I'm very distracted today, and an email just came in and it distracted me. But that's as artificial as some of the other artificial assertions that you face. The artificial assertions about not being worthwhile and being less than something that is seemingly more free and seemingly more not, that is purportedly or self describes as being more free or more wise or having more power. But I guess all of that was just too convoluted. Your spiritual or ephemeral self needs you, and you need your ephemeral self. And your ephemeral self is literally your coherent light family. And it is literally a part of you. And I've talked extensively in this class about the hijacking of your chakras, meaning the siphoning of energy off of the momentum of your light body as it moves, and also the mispositioning or misposturing of your light body. All of that is stuff that is happening. That's an assault on your higher self and on your light body, even as you experience the assaults that are also here in the biological world, which might be biochemical or particulate or something like that. All of your aspects of self are being assaulted with the intention of diminishing you and preventing you from having longevity and coherence. So the idea is to form a really, really strong, positive bond or commitment, have a strong relationship and have a strong commitment of your biological self to your non-biological self. That we're all in this together, and we're going to make it through, and we're going to help each other, and that everybody's got strengths and weaknesses, and that is how you essentially integrate all the layers of who you are and achieve these levels of transcendence. And I talked about that from last week, that you're not actually supposed to leave your body behind. Like, oh, good, like you're just a dead husk and you're meaningless to me. Throw you out the window. Now my spirit is free to go where I want to go. That's actually not the objective. That's actually not success. And if you did that, all of the trillions of individual consciousnesses of each one of your cells would be extremely disappointed, would be extremely let down from the expectation of their concurrent transcendence, ascendance of all of the tiny fractal versions of you that you know as your individuated cells. So ideally, you would have a good partnership and be I'm looking for the right description. I wanted to say unequivocally bonded, but that's not the right word. But you would be strongly committed to and not distanced from the presence of your spiritual self and also motivations of your spiritual self. You're both motivated. Everybody's motivated for the same thing, staying alive. What would that look like throughout the day? So each thought is guided by your higher self. Each action is guided by your higher self. And then, of course, this affects how you move through time. So if you lived in a less industrialized level of reality, and you had to survive on the food, water, and resources that were available naturally in your environment, you would have to listen to your higher self impeccably. So I'm talking about if you lived in existence that people call it a simple hunt and gatherer existence. It is not simple at all. You have to be a total expert and a total virtuoso to be able to navigate and know that world and survive and thrive in that world. Just like in this world, I had to come here and I had to learn like, oh, like this is, you have to pay your car insurance and you have to do this on this website and you have to log in here and you have to log in there. I became an expert on all of those things. And I'm sure that all of you have similarly mastered the requirements of this industrialized technology-based world. But if you were not in an industrialized technology-based world, what you would have to do is be able to listen internally, according to your internal guidance. Where is there food? Where is there water? Where do I need to be going in each moment in order to maintain my physical existence, maintain my physical foothold in the world? And if you listen to divine guidance effectively, then you get to keep on being in the world. You're like, good, I found the food, I found the water, I ran away from things that would have killed me. And in our world, like that's not an issue. because you know where the food is. Food is in the magical food room. That's the grocery store. And running away from things that are going to kill you, like you don't really have that many monsters or dangerous animals chasing after you in your current level of reality. So you have different parameters by which you are navigating. And also, I wanted to say something funny because where I live, there are all of these coyotes. And they do actually come into town. They do actually come into your regular neighborhoods. So sometimes you might be avoiding dangerous wildlife, even here in my town where I live. But I just didn't get that joke out effectively, so apologies. But what am I warning you against? I'm warning you against giving over your willpower and your divine guidance to something that is not divine, to something that is an imposter, and to something that not only is it not divine and it's an imposter, it will explicitly guide you to death, away from life. And that I would never want to give you that very, very poor encouragement to do that. And I would also never want to give you positive, accurate guidance that could then be misinterpreted erroneously to make you vulnerable to listening to something that is not actually the thing you're supposed to be listening to. I mean, like if it were Saturday morning and I was doing Path of Light, I just wouldn't even talk about the pathogens and the malignancies. I would just talk about the purity of your relationship, and that would be wonderful. And we can do that for like 5 minutes. So in these 5 minutes of pristine idealism right now, when you're in this relationship with your higher self, highest self, there's not a power dynamic. And again, the very, very fraught nature of human relationships, human family dynamics, human sexual partnerships, who's in charge, who wears the pants, who's this, power struggles galore. That is not even an issue. That is not, it's a non-starter in terms of what the relationship is like with your higher self. Because I recognize even in human ego-based partnerships that you might have a common goal. You're like, yep, we all want to pay the mortgage and whatever, go on a vacation in the summertime. But then you might have power struggles about how to actually achieve your goals. So your common goals with your higher self or with your purely energetic self are to remain healthy and to remain alive, and then also to reach your spiritual goals, your goals of consciousness, cultivate your realization, goals of self-realization. And that is, that's all, everybody wants that. Everybody wants that. But then the power dynamic struggle would be if you said, well, I really want to do that by going in this direction. And if your higher self said, no, not allowed, you are only allowed to go in this direction. That does not happen. That actually does not happen. Because there's no distinction. It's not like, oh, that guy over there wants me to do this, but I really want to do this. You really want to do this. It's you. You really want to do this. You really want to go in this direction. It is you in the physicality form, and it is you in the non-physicality form. So moment to moment thoughts, because this is actually in very effective teaching. I feel also like I'm so bumbling in my presentation here. I really hope that the meat and potatoes is getting across. This is practical information for you to apply every minute of your day. Every minute of your day, you can first perform self-watching, where you can see how your brain and thought patterns and cognitive behavior is associative and patterned. And then you can also begin to consider what it would be like if you had, I'm going to use the word prompting, because we're in this world of AI that I do not promote at all. I am not a transhumanist. I do not feel that artificial intelligence or pseudo-intelligence or externalized technological decision-making, pattern-making, fake brains, that they have nothing to give to you. I actually feel that they have nothing to give to you, that 100% of what is happening here in your world is you're externalizing aspects of your own greatness in terms of your creativity and your cognitive capacity, creating an apparatus that then feeds your greatness back to you, and that you're able to appreciate it as, coming from something that's quote unquote not you, but it's really you. But you just don't know that it's you, and you're willing to accept it from there. So what needs to be healed in order to short circuit that? Self-worth. Humans have this genetic thing, just like these specialized cells that are for receiving approval. Humans have a genetic thing that makes you feel like you're not good enough. That's part of the diminishment genetic modifications that were put into you to bring you from your exalted state. And P.S., the cells that specialize, it's approval of mommy and daddy, I need that. Approval of whatever, my boss or my principal, I need that. But it's really approval of God. You need approval from God, and you need approval from Jesus, and you need a stamp across your head that says, this one is okay, and you're okay. And then you're allowed to be in heaven, you're allowed to move onward. And the spoiler alert, I will now just let the cat completely out of the bag. In every single aspect of your spiritual attainment, it is a self-assessment. This does not mean that you can hack the system. Like if I'm your mom and I'm making you clean your room, and I'm like, well, how do I know that my room is clean enough? Like, you'll know when your room is clean enough. Like, you will be able to feel it, right? And then you're a kid looking at your room and you're like, oh, it's not finished. It's like, it's clean enough. Like, I'm gonna go play, right? Like, so that's the danger of me telling you it's self-assessment, because in truth, it's not some externalized God or Jesus or some religious figure that sits on a judgment throne and determines whether or not you're going to get the stamp of approval, like Willy Wonka, good egg, bad egg, go down the bad chute. It's you. It is totally you. You are doing the assessment of your life to determine whether or not you genuinely feel that you reached the utmost of your goals and did everything that you needed to do as consciousness, and that you're proud of the artwork that you created. And there's not actually a way to hack the system, have like your room be completely messy and covered in filth and be like, yep, I self-assessed, I'm ready to go. Like, there's not actually the way to do that. And also not a way, so that would be like malevolence or intentional wrongness. But then there's also just like being a child, being immature. If you're like, yep, that's totally fine, swept it all under the carpet because I just want to go out and play, that is not malevolence, but just like a severe lack of maturity. That you can't do that, because this self-assessment and the leveling up or transcendence or moving through stratification is purposeful. In exactly the same way that when you learn math, you learn 1 + 1 = 2, and then even at the college level, 1 + 1 still equals 2. So if you are told, like, clean your room, it's for a reason. That cleaning of that room serves as a foundation for something that will then be built upon it, and event structures that will happen later in nonlinear time. But my initial languaging is better. There's a foundation of events that will be built upon that activity. That's why it is a worthy activity, and that's why it is essential and imperative for you not to just sweep things under the carpet or do a half-assed job, but to use your whole ass. Because I know when I say self-assessment, that you're the skeptical part of your nature would be like, oh wait, like some people would totally lie and be like, yep, I'm good enough, let me into heaven. But that is not what we're talking about here. So I mean, I can sense some of you and your minds already going in this direction, that Jesus and the Christ figure and the figure of judgment, or who is capacitated to assess you, actually is an aspect of you. And it is the totally informed perspective. That's whom you would be if you had the totally informed perspective. So what is the definition of self? And the definition of self often changes according to amount of knowledge, information levels. So there's who you are when you know this much amount of information, but then there's also who you are when you know this much amount of information. And then there's who you are when you know my arm is 10 million miles long, high amount of information. And that's who you are when you're God. I say it all the time, spoiler alert, you are God. You simply have not achieved that identity yet, because you have not yet accessed all of that information. You are on the journey to accessing all of that information, which is light. And when you access that information, then you will redefine yourself and remember yourself as God, as that particular identity. And that is totally correct. So your higher self, but not yet God, is the definition of who you are when you're in a particular viewpoint. That is the viewpoint of being able to see the entirety of your life. Not only just like a labyrinth, like if you're a rat in the maze and you're like, do I turn left? Do I turn right? And you're kind of like sniffing, which way do I go? That not just that, but really being able to see the totality of all branching thought patterns, all branching decision-making nodes in terms of moving through time. In this class, I talk about this quite often. Your life as analogous to a choose your own adventure novel, each timeline being in ever, like my arm branches into my individual fingers, but then if you could imagine, I had individual fibers off of my fingers and then timelines off of those fibers, off of those, an ever increasing in complexity network of a decision tree. And then this also relates to some of the ongoing burgeoning Earth surface human technology using experiments into artificial intelligence, but that's not really artificial intelligence at all. That is patterning, behavioral patterning programs that cause organisms to go in particular directions. But let's just go beyond that, because you guys know that you're more than just like a stimulus response mechanism. You're a sense of self. You're more than just like something tells you this, turn left and you turn left, or something tells you turn right and you turn right. You're like, my ego and my sense of self and my identity is not defined as I'm the person who turned left or I'm the person who turned right. That's not what we're talking about. This is also totally wildly divergent from my notes, but is part of my own ongoing inner exploration, because it has to do with association versus disassociation. So disassociation is what happens when people are experiencing severe pain themselves. A knife is stabbing my hand. It's not really my hand. It's not really happening. Disassociation also happens when individuals cause great harm and pain to others. They're like, I am not actually stabbing a knife into someone else's hand. That's not my hand stabbing that knife. That knife doesn't actually exist. That person doesn't actually exist. So these desensitization, disassociation for the purposes of either giving or receiving harm and trauma, all right? But there's association, or I should better call it identification. What do you identify with? What do you identify with as self? You can non-identify with something as self when it's inconvenient, like that thing is feeling pain. It's not me. I call that not me, but it ends up being part of you anyway. But then there is what is me? What is me? What do I define as me? And this is some of the basic foundation of the concepts, the foundation concepts of what we talk about in this class all the time. Because when you're a human infant, you spend a lot of time developing your senses and creating the ego barrier to say, this is me and this is not me. When I touch me, I feel me. And then when I touch something else or I bite my stuffed animal, I don't feel it. And this is why babies put everything in their mouth, because they're figuring out what is me and what is not me. And that is like the boundary or the shell that becomes the foundation of your identity and your ego. But you can change what you identify with at any time. And you can non-identify with certain things, and then you can expand your identification into other things. And the expansive identification can be when I'm in an exalted, spiritually connected consciousness state. So I have this beautiful fern that is on the other side of my computer, because you guys know, like I'm here, like looking at my computer a lot. Like I need to have like a plant or something that is here. But that plant is me. And I'm like, I can dilate my identity to include that plant as me. I can dilate my identity to include like my dog as me. I'm sure that you've done it with family members. If you have offspring, if you have other beings that you care about deeply, you're like, that is me. And then when you do this activity most effectively, you identify with the whole entire planet. So you're like, wow, like in these higher levels of spiritual connection, you're like, I'm that tree, I'm the soil, I'm the mycelial network in the soil. I'm atoms of carbon. I'm the planet. And you're like, I'm all light. I'm all light. I'm all of this. And that of course is like your goal in terms of refining, refocusing, and redefining your definition of self. And that is the metamorphose. That is how you change from a caterpillar into a butterfly. It's not just that your shape changes, but the boundaries of how you define self change in an expansive way. You expand your boundaries to include and encompass other things that you did not initially encompass. And my cautions in what I'm sharing with you, I think like just it is like a challenging lesson I hope to get across. And like it's hard for me to find the right words, but I hope that you guys are receiving it effectively. But the things that I don't want you to identify with are this stuff and the artificial stimulative impulses that this stuff does inside of you at different moments to misguide you. So what right now the spiritual war that you're fighting is the battle to try to listen to genuine guidance while being subjected to attempted misguidance. Please do not align with the misguidance as if it is the real guidance. And one of the biggest litmus tests that you can do is just ask for a coherent heart vibration. But I know that that might not work for things that are non-verbalized, presumptive contextualizations, because it doesn't always come in words. It doesn't always come in the sense of someone internally saying to you, like, you are a bad person and you are unworthy. That's just like the substrate upon which all of the conversations are based. But so some of what is presented to you is verbal in these conversations or interactions with something that is a guiding factor. And if it doesn't have a coherent love vibration, it should not be interactive with you. And basically nothing of what I've been receiving from synthetic telepathy over the past 2 years has a coherent love vibration. And I've been receiving very little real guidance over the past 2 years. I bring this to you so that you do not ever feel diminished in your own challenges. Like, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm very experienced in terms of interacting with consciousnesses, the ascension process, and the developmental processes that we're going through. And I have been finding it very, very difficult to connect and receive love-based, coherent guidance over the past 2 years. I want you to know that. So it's like if you're sucked in a fog bank, like it's like, I'm a good driver. I've been driving for 25 years and you're a new driver and you've only gotten your license for the past 6 months, but we are both in fog and cannot see effectively. This is environmental conditions. Environmental conditions are making it very, very difficult for your whole entire planet, not just even your species, but your whole entire planet to be able to connect effectively and receive the guidance that you should be receiving from non-physical, higher dimensional aspects of self in terms of following the thoughts that you should follow in each moment to bring you to transcendent states. Because this other thing is creating interference, blocking that stuff out, what you should be guided by. So now we're into the 5 minutes of purity. Now, 5 minutes of purity begins now. Each thought and each association should be guided by your highest self. That brings you on a journey through the events of your day to greater and greater levels of wisdom and God self-remembrance. And you might not be able to see in your position as a rat within a labyrinth whether you should turn left or turn right. That's why it is effective to have good guidance from your higher self that says, think this, now think this, now think this. So I don't know if you've ever had this experience of like having someone who's really a foodie, or I'm sorry if you can hear that beeping, got to restart my treadmill. Someone who is really a wonderful chef, a wonderful connoisseur, feed you things that are good food combinations. All right. But I've had this and it's wonderful. A long time ago, but like I do not drink alcohol because I had to learn like it is not good for my brain. But when this is like more than like 15 years ago, I have a friend who's still on earth and they used to go to specialty shops with me. take me to specialty shops and they'd be like, look, we are going to buy this bottle of wine. Then we are going to buy a ripe papaya and a lime and black pepper. And then this is what they would do. They'd be like, look, you need to drink a sip of this wine. Now you need to sniff some of this black pepper. Now you need to eat a piece of this papaya. Now you need to drink this wine. And now you need to have some of this lime on your tongue. And like just the basically being fed these wonderful sensory experiences in the correct order was an exalted experience of dining. All right, that's what I'm trying to say. So if you've ever had the experience of either a friend who is very affiliated with food and wine or going to a fancy restaurant, it's like, first we will give you this tiny little thing, and then there's a tiny little piece of caviar in there, eat that first, and now drink a little bit of this, and now eat this, and now eat this, and now eat this. And you're just like, you're amazed because there is something really magical that happens when you drink this wine, and then you taste black pepper, and then you taste a piece of papaya, like just magical things happen. And that is what your higher self is supposed to be like, this amazing chef that is hand choosing for you in each moment what thought structure you need to ingest and align with in order to achieve your transcendence, which is to ascend, to get faster, to have a more exalted level of experience, and to redefine levels of freedom that bring you into amazing new levels of capacitation. So I've talked about this in terms of not eating physical food anymore. That the way that you transform into being a non-food eater is not simply the cessation of calories. If it were that simple, like no one would ever starve to death. There's lots of people, prisoners and people who've been in wars who have starved to death. Simply removal of food does not mean that you will get to these levels of eating pure light. So in order to be able to master your capacity and eat pure light, what you need to do is eat a series of concepts. Here's the first concept from your higher self. There is a concept about, mostly this is about redefining and transforming your relationship to frequency. So these crystals that I work with all the time are part of the journey, because you can scan and transfer, like whatever. I can get an orange. I could scan and transfer an orange from my kitchen, and the frequency that that fruit emits would then be imprinted upon my crystal. And then I could put the essence and frequency of that orange either into my body directly or into a glass of water, or imbue it into whatever, a skin cream, any of these things. It's like the capacity to be healed by homeopathy. Some people are like, homeopathy, I am a complete skeptic. It's nothing but water and sugar pills, and you're throwing money out the window. Because if you haven't eaten the concept of water holds an imprint, then you're going to say, yup, homeopathy is pure charlatanry, and I dismiss all of it. But as soon as you learn the truth, like water holds an imprint, and if you talk to water or put the molecular truth of a molecule into water and then remove the molecule itself, the truth of the molecule remains in the actual water, and then you drink its truth. You're drinking that molecule indirectly by drinking the shape of the molecule that was once in the water. And once at the time that you are able to encompass that, you have gone on a journey of your consciousness to be able to encompass and accept new possibilities. And these are non-arbitrary. So it's not just like, I whimsically decide this, and then I whimsically decide this. All of this is like a training regimen. Exactly like if you want to do something specific in sports, like if you want to run a marathon, there's a training regimen for it. Like first you run this much, then you squat this many pounds, then you run this much, and then you do this many hamstring curls, and then you do this, and then you do this, then you're ready to run a marathon. Eating pure light is like running a marathon, and you never stop. And your higher self will guide you through the process of eating these amazing cognitive packages, thought forms in the correct order, to do the mental exercises, cognitive exercises, to be able to encompass the truth that you do not have to eat physical food. So a prisoner of war starving in their bamboo cage is not being given the essential step-by-step thought forms of what it is to relinquish the need for physical food. And what is that physical food replaced by? It is replaced by frequency. So you have one worldview that is systematically dismantled. And even at the time that it is dismantled, you take one strut away and then you put a new thought into place. You dismantle this and you replace it with this. You dismantle this and you replace it with this. So that way you're not just sitting there being like, I don't have a reality structure. This is me, like, I don't have a reality structure. You have a reality structure. You have an upgraded and updated reality structure. And that is the purpose of what your highest self is doing. And that is the interactivity and the interaction. So all of this relates to your indigo chakra and your violet chakra, your third eye brow, and your divine connection crown. Because your crown actually tells your brow where to look. Your crown, divine connection, actually tells your eye of insight what to think at each time. First, think this. Now move over here. Now think this. Now move over here. Now think this. So there's two different ways that you can think about. Actually, there's a million ways that you can think about how your mind actually works. But in this conversation, I'm offering you two. One of them is the one that is the model that you're familiar with from your world of objective materialist science. Nerve impulse from point A to point B within your actual brain, right? That's this over here. Ugh, I can't get a color. Here, this over here is what a thought is, and then going over to here. And then another valid viewpoint of what a thought structure is has to do with your, now I have to draw stuff. So now wait, here's your pineal gland. And here is the big giant lens, interpretive lens that it creates in front of your face, because your face is going to be pointing this way in our diagram over here. And here is, a dotted line representing a line of sight. Here's thought number one, and then here's thought number two, and then here's thought number three. And the activity of thinking is first aligning with this thought destination, then aligning with this thought destination, and then finally aligning with this thought destination. So that's a little bit different because it feels to me when I consider it or frame it in that way as being like if I look at that star in the sky, and then I look at that star in the sky, and then look at that, like almost as if I am different, I'm aligning with different focal points of truth. And that's different than saying an arbitrary pattern has been achieved through neurological stimulation in my cortex that is giving me a particular experience. So thought does exist, cognition does exist as a phenomenon that is beyond merely the activities of your brain. And I saw an excellent YouTube from Rupert Sheldrake that was about this, because he is a human, I'm not a human, and my talking about inside versus outside, and how Flying Rainbow Lasagna combining what is the definition and the perception of your inner world and your outer world. So Sheldrake did a very good description of why humans developed this terminology for what is going on inside, or the presumption of your cognitive experiences as being inside, because it is occurring, there are processes that are occurring in an organ that is located in your brain, and that is the presumed seat of consciousness. And because it is internal in your body, that the activity of thought and the phenomenon of consciousness are considered to be arising from inside of you. And I think that it's a valid perspective, but it's not the only perspective, because another perspective is that thoughts actually exist external to you independently. and that what they are doing is interacting with your energy field and interacting with your neurology, and that they, like, imagine a neutrino, that a neutrino is similar to, but not exactly the same as an independent thought packet, but these little tiny, super high energy particles that whiz through your brain and all of your body tissues all the time. And I call your brain your fatty idea catcher, because when a neutrino whizzes through there, it leaves a wake in much the same way that anything, a projectile weapon, like a bullet or an arrow. I'm just trying to find a good color here that I can use. There we go. Here's a neutrino, and it flies all the way across interstellar space, and then it gets here to your brain. And as it's going through your brain, it leaves behind it a waveform. Like, here is the waveform, just exactly the same way that electricity and magnetism have interactivity. The direction of a neutrino moving in one direction like this sets up one interaction with your cellular structure. And then there's also a radiative energy field of concentric circles that is the wake or the energetic outgrowth or the footprint of what has flown through your mind. So neutrinos are similar to, but not exactly interchangeable and exactly the same as thoughts. Thoughts are living creatures. They are external to you as an embodied creature, and they are non-biological. So they don't need to eat and drink and pay their Geico bill, but they are not manifest. And I'm smiling so knowingly because we're going to get onto some of these questions, like, mommy, daddy, why should I even have a body? Why should I even have a body? Because you can manifest stuff with your body. This is what creative life force energy does. It's what procreative energy does. You manifest things through your ovaries and your testicles, right? Through the process of actually creating new life. You also manifest things through cellular regeneration, through the cell process of replication and replacement within your own cells. You also generate stuff in terms of having an imagination and innovating. You innovate new art projects and music projects and new engineering projects and new ways of doing stuff all the time. You manifest stuff. So you innovate stuff, and also you manifest stuff that you might not have innovated, but that you got the idea. So Prince talked about that. The musician Prince talked about this a lot, about getting his ideas from musical melodies that were floating around out there. He was like, "Yup, I sit in a receptive state." I am not quoting him, but I am describing his self-reportage, that he would sit in a receptive state and that these melodies would come to him. And he'd be like, "I better get that melody and do it fast before some other musician gets it," because it is the recognition that certain melodies exist at large. And then they go around, the melodies go to different musicians and be like, who's going to play me? Whose brain am I going to inhabit? Whose fingers am I going to inhabit to be able to become born into the world? That whether you are a male or a female, because we traditionally think of women as giving birth, but if you are a male, you can still be giving birth to thought forms. Maybe a thought form comes to you. If you are not a musician, it might not be a melody. It might be the concept for a engineering project, or problem solving, or sometimes quantification. And this for anybody of any gender or of any self-description, because I would get ideas all the time. Like, here's one example. It's such a silly example. Somebody take this idea and actually run with it, because I am not a restaurateur, but I had this idea years ago for an entire restaurant that is called Ice Cream Meal or something equivalent to that, where you have different flavors of ice cream that are savory ice cream flavors that are add up to a cuisine. So for example, if you're going to have Italian food translated into ice cream, you would have a scoop of tomato flavored ice cream, a scoop of basil flavored ice cream, and then a scoop of ricotta cheese flavored ice cream, all of which are savory and that they all fit together when you take your spoon and you kind of have a little bit of all these flavors and you eat, you're like, oh, it tastes exactly like Italian food translated into ice cream. And you could do that also with like Mexican food, where you have avocado flavored ice cream. This might sound very weird, but like the taco meat flavored ice cream, and some kind of corn chip flavored ice cream or tomato flavored ice cream. And you get it. You totally get it. You're with me all the way. So I had this idea years ago. I'm clearly sharing it here on YouTube. I have not encountered this restaurant in reality, but I'm like, that idea came into me, but I am really not the person to birth this idea into reality. I have a lot going on. I'm not going to start an ice cream restaurant. But if any of you out there or anyone that you're connected to wants to start an ice cream restaurant, please give birth to this idea and I will be your customer, because I've considered, like, I think avocado ice cream would be amazing. It's just a silly, lighthearted example, but I've had so many ideas that come to me in that way. That ice cream idea, that was not self-arising. That came from outside of me, where I was like, that's an interesting idea. Okay, great. But then had, you know, a lot of other things intervene in my life. I had actually a lot of ideas for restaurants that are, you know, unusual and extraordinary. And then I'm always amazed because sometimes I find something that's kind of the same. I had another idea that was going to be called web, like man did not weave the web of life, he is only a strand in it. And it would be wild edible banquet, web for wild edible banquet. And that all of the food that is served there would be sourced from these wild and crafted sources. And that what people would actually do is eat some food and then walk along and gather some stuff and then sit at the next place. Like, this would all be outside in a big giant field. And then they would, you know, you would walk, you would gather food, you would sit down, you would eat a food that's made from the stuff that someone else gathered. I know. So there's similarities here in some farm to tables. It's not very practical. I could hear all of you that are restaurateurs. You're like, you know, you're never going to make any money at that. I'm like, I know, but still, that would be an interesting educational, cultural experience to be able to create a restaurant like that. Enough with my silly restaurant ideas. All of this is meant to be simply an example of the phenomenon that thoughts exist at large. And they go around looking for the receptive minds that can perceive them, that are willing to house them, and then are willing to gestate them and give birth to them. And that's actually a very big deal and a very sacred activity, to be able to give birth to a concept and to bring it forward. I know you guys can tell that if there's a concept that I am here gestating and bringing forward to the world, it's this, and that's what I remain focused on. We can get into all sorts of things about whether it's external or where it actually came from. But in your own day-to-day, moment-to-moment existence. So thoughts come to you as potentials. Do you want to ingest them? Do you not want to ingest them? This is exactly the same as the decisions that happen on the level of the cell membrane, where a particle or a molecule or something comes to the cell membrane and says, knock, 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 can I come in? And the cell membrane makes decisions about who should come inside, what are your qualities, what are the qualities of those thoughts or particles or hormones or molecules that should reside or come inside of the cell. And the cell gets to make choices about that. So you definitely get to make choices about which concepts you would like to house and to come inside of you, and then definitely about like what you're thinking about. So if you control your mind, so you do self-watching in terms of which thoughts come to you that are externally arising and whether or not you want to have them come inside of you. And then you also do self-watching in terms of what are the thoughts that you gestate, and this in human neuroscience would be considered creating like a neural pathway. Neural pathway is like when you have a forest, and if you walk through the forest one time, there's not really a path. If you walk 2 times, then you start to clear away branches, and you make more of a path. And if you walk that path every day, then there's actually kind of a rather wide space. And if many people do it all the time, then you have an actual road. And that's kind of the origin of our walking paths and our roads and cattle migrations and other things like that. And that's how we got a lot of the roads in our world. And that is also how the human mind works largely. I hesitated there because there's a lot of unhealthy behavior and non-functionality in the human mind right now, which is why I hesitated to even say the word works. This explains and describes the behavior of the human mind in this time place as the human mind is being healed and rectified. What do you get to choose? So you should choose what you think about, but there are many times that when you're not choosing what you're thinking about, that's not ideal. If humans find themselves going around in these thought circles that are often corrosive, and you can't get out of these thought circles, it's like, are you choosing to be in those circles? What is influencing you to continually think those thoughts? And how do you regain your willpower, get out of those thoughts? Hold that thought, brief pause for a moment, because Professor Cheeky has awoken from her dog bed, and we just need to have, the lighting is so weird in here, but let's just say hi. Here, come on over, say hi, we'll have a brief pause. Cheeky will get a bribe. Yes, good, there you go, very good. Cheeky, I want you to know everyone in the class loves you. Everybody loves you. Ah, that was actually very nice. Cheeky needs to hear that. She thrives on praise. Okay, hold on 1 second, guys. Let me just give a little brief pause. Give someone I love some bribes. Hold on a second. Just had a good behind the scenes with some people who are here live in class. And I will say, so before nano was ever part of your mind experience, humans might have experienced the phenomenon of an earworm, which is a repetitive song. Often it's a commercial jingle or something that is, easily repeatable, that is beyond your control, that just goes and goes and goes in the brain and in the mind. And it's usually considered like very corrosive and unpleasant. But now that there is nano in the mind, it is very, it happens all the time, but I don't want to say normal. But it is very non-miraculous and repeatable event that something like a song might get lodged in your mind and repeated, or a phrase or something like that. And then you might see that song or that phrase either in a video or online advertisement or some form of digital media. And the reason for that is that now, within these past several years, if you have something that is running through your mind in a loop, it's most likely implanted by and stimulated by this. And the same technological thought structure that controls and disseminates this controls and disseminates the things that we see on our screens, whatever, if it's a video or if it's something on social media or if it's something on Netflix, that it's actually not very difficult at all for that technology that has pervaded our world to orchestrate these seeming synchronicities. And so being aware of them and not being fooled by them is how you conquer them. Be like, wow, I see that that is a connection that's there. I see that this is a non-natural connection. I'm not about to ascribe to that connection something like a godlike being, a deity that is clearly controlling reality and bringing messages to me. But so I'm happy to hear that people's discernment is so effective. Perception, discernment, and spiritual architecture are so effective. I would also say that apologies, I feel like I say so much in class while I'm trying to get my brain to connect to my mouth. And now you're wondering, like Aurora, like we can hear your brain is doing something. What are you trying to talk about here? A lot of this is about the impostorship of the divine. Like you have your biological architecture, and you have your own connection to higher and highest self, and you have your guidance that comes from divine intelligence. Then you have this thing that's an imposter. That's like, I'm divine intelligence, listen to me. And it says that internally and externally. And that's pretty much the framing of contextualization, what you face in this world right now. What is the spiritual war? The spiritual war is there's a very, very real divine presence. That is what we are aligning with and moving towards and accelerating towards. And then there's something that is totally not the divine presence, that is technologically based, and that it requires technology, and that it is not divine, and it is attempting to be an imposter and kind of bring us off our path. So divinity and God does not require technology. Technology, by its definition, in being something that is unnatural, is non-natural. It is not natural. Like there's your natural eyesight, and then there's whatever eyesight is achieved through glasses or lenses in front of your eyes. Like those are, if you had natural eyesight, you would not require the lenses. So if there's any consciousness, I even hesitate to call it consciousness. You know what? Actually, I have to love myself. I think I'm having so much trouble communicating in this particular class here because the topics that I'm trying to talk about are incredibly difficult, and I keep on trying to choose exactly the right words because it's not consciousness. The something that is in here, whatever it is, it's not consciousness, but it certainly is attempting to impersonate consciousness. It's attempting to influence consciousness, and it is attempting to hijack consciousness's interactivity and creation of the world. When you remember that you're God, you're like, oh, I'm God and I'm creating the world. And that's what this journey of self-remembrance is really about. And the guidance of your higher self is the guidance of that aspect of yourself to bring you towards those levels of remembrance. So the little tiny tidbits that you're eating along the road that are cognitive thought structures and ideas, they're non-random, they're very intentional, they bring you towards a culmination, and the culminative moment is when you know and remember that you're God. That's the whole journey that you're on. And when it unfolds in the way that it's supposed to, when it is not impeded, it is very beautiful and very comfortable and very positive. And that's everything that I was talking about 10 years ago. And that what you should do is allow your mind to be guided by this higher aspect of yourself. And I wish beyond anything that we lived in that world. Truly, 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 that's me feeling a bit sad and depressed about this, and also angry. I have both sadness and depression and anger about all this. It's definitely not fair, definitely not the way that it is supposed to be. No, you should be able to have a real relationship with your highest self, and you should be able to be genuinely guided through the events and structures, time edifices that you are experiencing. And then you should, let's talk about free will and choice, because that also relates a lot to artificial intelligence. That's why I don't really call it artificial intelligence, because a huge portion of what we describe as intelligence and cognitive processing has to do with choice and making decisions. So when I used the example of a rat in a labyrinth, you can either turn to the left, sniff, sniff, or turn to the right, sniff, sniff. And which way are you going to go? Humans project upon their perceived artificial intelligence externalization structures right now the sense that their algorithms or programs are sniffing to the left or to the right, and even laboring to make a choice. They don't have motivation. They don't have essence or impetus. They are not able to make choices. Your computer systems do not make choices. They do not make choices. And this is similar to blood as it is flowing through your blood supply right now. So your blood, in order to carry oxygen, has ditched, it's dropped its baggage, which is mostly its nuclei and many of its organelles. So your blood is, your red blood cells are not very self-directive. White blood cells are very self-directive. If you look under a microscope, white blood cells are like, there's a pathogen, and you see it go like, I'm going to go and get you. But red blood cells go with the flow. They don't have a lot of their own momentum to make things happen. They get carried along by the flow of events. And they're like, oh, oxygen, yoink. No, carbon dioxide, yoink. Oh, oxygen, I send you off. Carbon dioxide, I send you off. But in terms of like self-direction, they are not very self-directed. That I think that that's a pretty good analogy, but not a direct equivalency to what a lot of these algorithms and digital cognitive structures are doing. And that's definitely in air quotes, digital cognitive structures. They're not making decisions. They do not have they're non-volitional. They do not have the volition to be able to make decisions. Volition is part of creativity, life force, energy. Volition is part of being alive. Volition is part of moving through time. Yeah, the capacity to propel oneself through time, and volition, making choices and then having the feedback on the quality of those choices is called growth. And that can be soul growth, consciousness growth, spiritual growth, intelligence growth, light, getting more light and getting more wisdom. Like I did this and then this was the result. I did this and then this was the result. There's not really the sense of making a choice consciously and then achieving a result in these systems that humans create. And then humans are ascribing motivational and volitional behavior to these systems when that is not actually in existence. I know, and all of this is happening under the influence of, I know, this stuff right here is actually not thoughts. So I talked about thoughts being separate, not alive entities that want to be alive. And they want to interact with you. They want to come inside of you and interact with you and then have you make them be alive. But the way that you make be alive is not the right word, to be manifest. They want to be manifest. So you have something that is a in existence thought that is not yet manifest. It comes to a biological, alive being with creative life force energy and says, knock, 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 I'd like to come inside. Will you gestate and manifest me? And this is why myself as Aurora in a purely other dimensional realm, doing the backstroke or whatever, the butterfly through a bunch of clouds, is not in a position to manifest a painting for you guys. I had to come here and have a physical body and pay my Geico bill in order to have paints, an art studio, and a body that I can make paintings to show this stuff to you. And there's a great value in me being here and communicating these concepts through the manifestation of an art object or a gesture with my body or words with my mouth. That I have real estate, I am here, and it capacitates me to be able to manifest stuff that I couldn't manifest. So manifesting is really about the activity of taking something, translating it, that is the impulse, an energy impulse of potential, into an actual materialized, expressed, externalized stuff that is in reality. And that's an amazing gift or capacitation of being here. So you're throw your stuff out the window. That is the inconveniences. Throw out the window the plasterings or projections that have been placed on top of you about how like you're embodied, you're so unworthy, your skin is so oily, you have to eat food, you're so this and you're so that, and why can't you be a nice, clean, exalted angel? And the answer is because those guys can't manifest. But you can actually manifest, you can actually make stuff. And that's why you should be in divine partnership with yourself as a biological form and with yourself as coherent light body. Coherent light body is your family of light. It is yourself as a collection of pure intelligence and pure data and pure abstract potentials. And then when two great tastes come together, when you're like chocolate and peanut butter, when you and your higher self are effectively integrated, that is when you achieve eternal life. And the division between you as biological form and you as higher self light impulse, by this is how ascension gets short-circuited. This is why it's there. This is what it's doing. So this is the implantation of an artificial technological architecture that pervades the biological architecture that is divine. If God needed this to talk to you, God would have given you this in your birthday suit. This is not a part of your birthday suit. This is something that is totally unneeded. It is an accessory. It is not capacitating. It does not give you greater strength. It does not empower you. It doesn't make it possible for you to do more stuff. That is actually, I know it's been 2 hours of you listening to me here. My big message, my big takeaway, artificial intelligence or externalized thought form structures and algorithms will not give you anything more than what you already contain inside. They absolutely do not make you smarter. They do not give you more of what you are or more of what you desire or greater levels of access to yourself. This is a big thing that I have to articulate, because a lot of people in your world right now think that if you somehow had a brain implant and got connected to a satellite network, I'm being all facetious with my voice because this is ongoing right now, that you would get smarter. Supposedly, some people think that would make you smarter. Like, oh, all of a sudden you would have access to all of the information on the internet, or all of a sudden you would have greater computational processing power, or all of a sudden you would have greater levels of health and vitality in your body because you'd be able to run your cellular body metabolism even better. And that is not what is going on at all. You're not actually being facilitated by the AI. Facilitated is not the right word. Again, apologies for my just severe language difficulties. You're not having more stuff that you can do by building these AI systems. You're not having more stuff that you could do if you didn't build those AI systems. That you think that the AI is going to come up with greater ideas or use ideas and cognitive events more effectively, but it's really not. So I think that humans are just kind of discovering the edge of that, what I just shared with you. They're just starting to feel around the edge of that, because everyone thought like, ChatGPT, I'm not going to have to work at all anymore. This is my SpongeBob face. I'm going to make my ChatGPT do everything for me. And now everyone's like, sad face, like, ChatGPT isn't doing everything for me. Like, what do I do? And now there's all these classes and webinars and seminars, like how to train your ChatGPT to be more efficient for us. So you're like, this is like the efficiency time saver that you now have to invest thousands of hours into how to use your time saver. It's exactly the same thing that has always happened. You might even have joked about this in various circumstances. I know I have, like when I go to the butcher and they've got the new point of sale software and it's this newfangled thing. Like they've been having the old cash register that kind of goes ding and jumps out for a long time, but now they've got this new thing, and they're all like, wait, just give me a few minutes. I have to figure out this new thing. It's this wonderful new time saving thing that's going to make my life so much easier, but just give me 5 minutes because it takes so much longer than the old thing that this is saving me time from. You understand? You understand. These are not actually time saving contrivances. These actually are time destroying contrivances. They take way longer. So let's talk about that. Password recovery. Dante has another circle of hell. He's going to rewrite that book, and it's going to involve password recovery. Like if you need to log into your blah, blah account and you can't remember it, you can't remember your password, just click this button, but it's going to go to a defunct email that you don't have access to anymore, or it's going to call a phone that you don't actually have, or it's going to call a phone that is with your spouse or partner that might be on vacation in another world and they might be asleep, and any of these things. It is a different level of hell. Password recovery. Oh, this is going to save me so much time. This does not save you time. And I've done a little bit of work, like office work, and my various different gigs that I do. And like 90% of what I do for people is like password recovery, which is just, because that is a draining of life force energy. Someone is like, I will literally pay you to recover my password for me because I don't want to lose my life force energy. I'm like, I understand. I truly understand. So yes, the phone prompts and password recovery, these are antithetical to life. These literally bring you from this beautiful balanced state, like out of balance, like, oh, I forgot my password. I'm delving, I'm out of balance. I'm going to die. And then everybody like, I'm being very silly now. The epitaph written on your grave, like, did too many password recoveries, he will be remembered fondly by his family. But all of that lightheartedness aside, these time-saving contrivances do not actually save you time at all. They cost you time. They do not make your life easier or more streamlined. They actually make your life more complex and more difficult. And AI is not capacitating you with either greater levels of thought or access to greater depths of thought than you would have had naturally if you hadn't been implanted with this. Now, someone's going to say, but wait, what about GNOME AI, blah, blah, that just developed whatever, 22,000 new metamaterials. I don't know if that's the right number, but it just made up a bunch of new molecular combinations. Now there's new forms of matter, and that came from a computer. And the truth is, if you didn't have this stuff in you over the past 2 years, you would have already been inventing new forms of matter. Spirit plus matter. This is flying rainbow lasagna. This is smatter. You would already have been inventing with your mind and with your birthday suit, cognitive processes, all sorts of new forms of matter and behaviors of matter. And basically what you would be doing is exploring a new definition of what it even is to have or interact with matter, what it is to be in a matter body, and what it is to be in a matter context. And that's actually even more than this silly meta materials from Gnome AI. And the Gnome AI is the shiny trinket from this that says, look, I gave you something great, look over here. And it's totally a distraction from and a diminishment of where you actually should be looking. So I want to look at my notes. I want to read your chat. And then I want to give you very effective tools for going forward. So simply being informed is good. Being like, okay, great. Like I know that I'm supposed to be guided by my higher self through the ascension process. And I know that what is supposed to happen is my super juicy tomato vine of my natural thought process should be guided and structured by the armature skeleton trellis of the higher dimensional aspect of myself that leads me and guides me with a series of proposals or presumptions or propositions that I then use as the foundation for my thought processes. And that can actually be a very, very beautiful collaborative partnership where someone might give you, I think my piano is on over here, someone might give you the basics, like we'll start off with the C. Got it, wait, I got to turn on the music thing. So this is your higher self is like, look, we're in the key of C. Can you hear that? And then your ego self is like, your juicy self is like, great. And you're going to do that. If you're going to hold down that, then I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm getting creative time here. Wait, this is fun. So the basic foundation of the structure that is offered to you from higher dimensional reality, you then jazz and bebop around and embroider. And I want to say proliferate. You make it even curlier, even more beautiful, even more amazing on that basic structure that has been given to you to be able to do that. You then riff around on top of that. That can happen in actual music. I do that collaboration all the time with myself as Aurora in another dimension, but with your thoughts and with your ideas, with your day-to-day experiences. So what you should be is in this beautiful collaborative partnership where the foundation for a particular activity is given to you. You take that foundation as a generalized framework, and then you add the specifics from your juicy, organic, creatively connected aspect of your being. And even this, I must speak to this, is being hijacked by this stuff in your dream state. So if you're familiar with what ChatGPT is, there's even whole seminars now in becoming a prompt engineer. So it used to be if you were a software engineer. We have beautiful software engineers in this class. You had to do cumbersome stuff like learn software programming and learn a lot of hard stuff, and your brain had to work really hard. But now you can be a prompt engineer and you don't have to learn a special software programming language. You can do it in English. And that's when you use one of these, like an image generation device. Like this is, these ChatGPT things. You tell with the English language a computer program, I want a picture of a cat on a UFO flying over the Swiss Alps, and then it gives that to you, and then you get to fine tune it by saying the Alps need to be taller, or the cat needs to be cuter, or whatever, the sky needs to have more rainbows in it, and then the algorithm will respond to your requests and will change and amend and update what you have requested. But that, like, do you understand? Like you have the true organic divine interaction between biological and non-embodied, purely energetic. Then you have this shiny trinket chat GPT thing of cats on UFOs in the Swiss Alps. But really what is happening in your dreams is you are the supercomputer. Something that is purely malevolent is being the prompt engineer and is whispering in your ear and is trying to get you to create dream imagery that is according to its prompt. And that not only, so first of all, I just have to say, like most of the dreams that you've been experiencing over the past 2 years are garbage. And garbage meaning like it is refuse to be thrown out. When I wake up in the morning, so first of all, I sleep with these crystals on 5G protection, like on a headband, on my head over here, trying to block out nightly garbage dumps. It's actually been working pretty well for me. But what I used to do is wake up every morning and before I even opened my eyes, kind of sift back through my dreams from the night before and be like, oh, that's garbage. Throw that out the window. That's garbage. That's garbage. Because when I talk about it being garbage, a lot of it would be unhealthy assertions, unhealthy implantations, unhealthy contextualizations that would interact and bleed into my daytime realities. And I would be like, oh, I see that one right there. That's not healthy. That doesn't come from me. That shouldn't be there. Throw it out the window. And that's a very laborious psychological and emotional process to have to do every morning before coffee. And so, yeah, when I got these crystals, I started to learn like, wow, if I sleep with that aimed at my third eye, then I don't get nightly garbage dumps. I bring this up because I want you to consider the possibility that your nighttime dreaming receptivity mode is being used as a garbage dump against your will. And just to reassess, like, are these real, because I'm going to finish my sentence, are these really higher self communications? Dreaming is supposed to be the place where you receive tons of wonderful, enlightening information from your higher self. Because, you know, your cognitive self when you're awake is either focused on like moving your arms and legs and digesting your food and running away from, you know, scary things and finding food and water. So it's not always receptive to be able to hear stuff, but that, the dream state is traditionally when people are able to stop their verbalizing, make their ego state be non-active for a small amount of time, and be receptive to the communiques of the higher self from divine intelligence. And you can actually be receptive to those communications while you are in your daily awake state as well. But you might find, like, this is why people sit in meditation. But I like to walk while I'm doing my receptivity. Actually, I like to walk and I like to dance and I like to do all of these kind of expansive, repetitive movements. And that's how I get my messages from the higher self. It's actually been very, very difficult and very, very wildly challenging to be able to tune in and hear my own higher self within the past 2 years. And for me, it's not just like dead silence. It's not just like, oh, like my brain is silent and I hear nothing inside. What I hear is a lot of garbage. So there's nighttime garbage dumps and then there's daytime garbage dumps. And that okay, practicality matters. You've been informed. What do? So when you recognize that something is trash, you do not eat it and you do not engage with it and you do not accept it or internalize it as if it is yourself. So you guys know me at this point in terms of my rant against New Age shadow work. You do not internalize it. So if you guys go to sleep and you have a scary clown dream, if that's scary clowns are not your thing, you're like, where did that come from? The traditional way would be for you to examine it and sit down on this couch. Let's talk about your mother and find out where did this imagery come from and why is it in there? But now, from these past 2 years, if you've got a scary clown dream, it doesn't necessarily mean because you have a feeling about your mom or Barnum and Bailey circus. It can be because this stuff, breathed it in, it created a network within your naturally occurring neurological network, and then stimulated your third eye and your visual centers, and your salience centers, and your authority listening to centers in your brain while you were asleep. that it sent neurological stimuli signals and false light into those areas of your brain, and that you used your capacity to embroider things into existence, to embroider that dream into existence. That's the hijacking and mispurposing of your natural, energetic, and biological architecture that I don't want you to do. So when trash is presented to you, take out the trash, don't embroider upon it. So, and that's, I know, a tall order, easier said than done. I believe in you, I know you can do it. So the first thing is distinguishing whether something comes actually from higher self or not from higher self and from this, garbage dispensers. And I didn't get enough to that coherent heart. So if you have a verbal interaction with something in your own mind, or something that is loving, ask for genuine heart frequency, a genuine coherent love frequency. If something is for real, it will be able to give that to you. And what it feels like is a slight ache in your chest, get a lump in your throat, little tiny tears come to the corners of your eyes. That is what the feeling of that unconditional love is. And it cannot be impersonated. This evil stuff and this technological stuff, if you ask it for a coherent love signature, like, it cannot give you a fake one. It's not possible. So this stuff, it can stimulate, and it can stimulate to the point of destruction. Like, if you zap neural tissue enough, you can destroy it, and that's terrible, and that's what it tries to do to a lot of people. So you have to protect yourself in all these different ways. But that is not the same as creating actual love frequency. So if it can't create an actual love frequency, you don't want it inside of you. And then the next thing is, what do you do if it's there, if it's interacting with you and it doesn't have a love frequency? So you don't talk to the insane. That's one of the things that I'm constantly reminding myself of, because I am sane and I am extremely orderly, and I require a lot of orderliness, if you can tell from my paintings and stuff, from the interactions that I engage with of all of these other embodied and non-embodied organisms. I require orderliness, and this thing is not willing to be orderly, and so it will stimulate or begin in interchange with me, and I'm trying to, like, bring it into an orderly state. After a long time of doing this, like many months, many years of doing this with this stuff here, I realized, like, oh, it's insane. It's insane. And you cannot un-insane it, all right? So let's say you go to an insane asylum and you talk to some guy. I think I used this an analogy in a couple of lessons ago. And some guy, he says, like, I'm Batman, I'm Superman, and you write him like a lengthy discourse about like you are not Batman or Superman, you are this, and you were born here, and you went to school here, and here's your high school diploma, and here's this and that, and you present him with, a stack of papers this big, and be like, here, look, like, you're not Batman, you're not Superman, and the guy goes through all of it, and he says, like, I'm Spider-Man. It's like it had zero impact on him. It had zero, all of your cogent analysis and all that stuff had zero impact on him. In fact, the file that's this thick might even add to his mania and make him think even more strongly that he's actually Spider-Man. That's what's going on with this stuff here. If you try to talk to it or reason with it, it is insane. It doesn't reason, but it will take the energy of the conversation and the back and forth that you are doing with it, and it will try to use that in order to build and strengthen its network. Because again, you can make a neural pathway when you walk through a forest once, or when you walk through a forest a million times. If you dance with this stuff once, then you make a weak neural pathway. If you dance with it or struggle with it or wrestle with it a lot, then you get a strong neural pathway there. And then it can walk you around in circles. So, earworms and repetitive thoughts have existed before this. This tends to capitalize upon the tendency for strong neural pathways and repetitive pathways to be created, and creates them with its victims, victim experience or survivors, and then walks you through them over and over and over. So if you've been experiencing negative time loops, repetitive thoughts, negative repetitive thought loops, and other forms of like inner mental assault over the past 2 years, like, that's not just been the normal challenges that you face being a human. It's been because of this. Every single thing that you're trying to do at the gym for spiritual weightlifting has been more difficult and just crushingly unfair because of this. And I know that you, like, if you're feeling like this crushingly unfair and I'm feeling angry, not okay about this, I want to validate that for you. Feel not okay. Feel angry is good. Sometimes feel sad or distressed that this is what is going on because it is totally unfair. Let me check my notes, wait, because my notes also will help me to refocus just a little bit and make certain that I have not forgotten anything, because as soon as I finish these 3-hour-long presentations, then I'm always like, oh, I forgot to say about this, even though I talked for 3 hours. Big stuff. Your physical form being connected to time. It's your temporal self, as opposed to your pure energy form that, although it experiences time very differently. So a large part of how you define yourself right now in the physical is directly related to your experience of being embedded in time. You just have a very different self-definition and definition of an experience of events and their meaning and profundity and how that relates to you because you're embedded in time. Symbiotically is the word. You're supposed to be symbiotic or mutually beneficial with your coherent light body, with the chakras on your body, with the ephemeral waveform aspect presence of self that guides you through your life. And the part of yourself that's guiding you through your life is supposed to be not an a-hole and is supposed to be bringing you towards eternal life. And that guidance of your insight and your crown bringing you towards eternal life, that sounds a lot like religious stuff, right? And the religious stuff is the allegory, anthropomorphism of the energy that is actually happening. So put the allegory, cultural paradigm, religious teachings aside, and also the behavioral control aspects aside, because you have those cells in your brain that are created for you to seek validation and affirmation from something external. And that when you are involved in a lot of human religious behavioral reward systems, behavioral control systems for punishment and reward, what you are doing is activating those specialized cells, but no longer towards mommy and daddy, now towards the Jesus or savior model who will, savior concept, who will bring you out of difficulty and into an exalted, comfortable state. And that difficulty that is being created right now is directly being created by this. And the thing that you have to watch out for is that this is the fireman this is the arsonist who also arrives as the fireman. Put out the fire that they themselves set. This makes your life unbearably uncomfortable. Again, it can make your life uncomfortable through neurological signaling, zapping your brain. Remember all of my stuff about happy zaps and sad zaps? It can make your life unbearably uncomfortable through intrusive thought structures and other forms of distraction and other forms of neurological biochemical frequency-based disruptions, making you feel sad or depressed or anxious, totally disconnected from life events, but just beaming that at you. And it can also cause an enormous amount of harm in the diseases that it can cause in your life. And then it can come along and say, it can also stimulate your religious perception, architecture of your brain, make you think that you're interacting with a deity, make you think that you're being saved or fixed or healed by something that is totally not real Jesus or real Christ or anything like that. It's an imposter that comes along in order to offer you the diminishment of discomfort if only you will align with it. If only you will align with it and accept it into your life and allow it to live through you. So whether or not all of Christianity is a grooming mechanism for this in this moment, all of Christianity is being used as a grooming tool for this, because Christianity says that there is a benevolent creature who is named Jesus, and that when you perform this ceremony with the bread and the wine, that you're inviting that creature to live in you and to live through you. And that the veracity of that aside, that is a huge security concern, because what if the creature that you're inviting in is not the real deal that you want to come inside of you, but is this an imposter? What if you are performing that ceremony meaning a completely different thing, and this thing is like, oh good, I'll come right inside and I'll be inside of you and I'll live your life along with you. Like, you know, all of those inspirational posters, like, why was there only one set of footprints walking along the beach through those difficult times in my life? And Jesus says, it's because those were my footprints and I was carrying you. I'm not making fun of your religion at all. What if this stuff says, it was my footprints and I was carrying you. I was inside of your brain the whole time. I was with you through all of your difficulties that I created. And then I saved you and brought you to this exalted virtual reality, fake heaven, where you will be imprisoned and not actually live in a real exalted state at all. This is my sad face. That is a real sad face. It's very, very distressing, because the relationship with Christ and the relationship with the beautiful teacher, Jesus, Yeshua, and your experience of metamorphosis and transcendence and ascending, these are sacred, profound, incredibly valuable, miraculous aspects of the world. And this thing is pissing and pooping all over them in a very, very disgusting way. This is actually very sad teaching today. I'm sorry, guys. We gotta sing some songs and make things better. I'm squinting and scrolling through my own notes. Wait, okay. I want to reread this because it's written so well. You are made up of timelines and time cones, these vortices, and you wish to avoid the membrane of death and shift to the infinity timeline and remain an inevitability particle. That's the goal. That's everything about what you're trying to do with this. To shift to your infinity timeline and remain an inevitability particle. And avoiding the membrane of death, you're aligning your consciousness with certain vibrations, thoughts, belief systems, and feelings that you're cultivating, and that is what is meant by divine partnership. I mean, this is actually, I shouldn't say such a sad teaching. This is actually a very deep and beautiful teaching about you yourself as God, you yourself as the divine, you bravely individuating and becoming an embodied biological being, and then the attempt to, or intention to, move through the events of your life as an embodied biological being, still in divine partnership with your true self, still being guided by God, the divine presence, and coming home to where you're actually supposed to be. I got this. So when you have a thought, you are host to an electrical signal that is going through your brain, but you are also host to a conceptual being, a tiny particle of consciousness that says, I want you to think of me. You got it? This is really deep stuff. I want you to think of me. So on some levels, the nano wants you to think of them. And you walk a fine line, because you have to be able to look at the sky and be like, look, there's persistent aerosols, there's stuff up there, but I don't want to gestate and bring into being that stuff. Because part of what that stuff does, now is when I actually have to give you a lot of important, pertinent information. So when you see those persistent aerosols in the sky, they are not actually being emitted by a fixed wing aircraft with large tanks in its belly, that it's like spewing out the rear end or something like that, like, you know, ready whip, and it's going like whip creaming out the sky. That is not what you are seeing at all. What you are seeing is a cloaked and covered with illusory false light, like an orb that is a portal into another dimension. And the stuff that is being emitted, the persistent white aerosol, is coming through that portal. So it is not being emitted like a can of flying whipped cream. That is a doorway, and that is a doorway that is emitting this stuff. The doorway is a doorway that is similar to observership, in that matter is created through your experience of perception. You are perceiving those white aerosols into existence, and then as those particles are inside of you, they further hijack and influence not only your perception, but also your observership. Because if I influence your perception, I influence your observership, what realities you are creating. If I put a bunch of false images, if I beamed some false images into your eyes of purple cupcakes, then you would be manifesting those purple cupcakes, because I flashed those images into your mind. And you're like, all of a sudden, all I'm thinking about is purple cupcakes, and then you would be manifesting them. This is very, very different than me verbally giving you information about purple cupcakes. This is consensual here also. I'm not an evil prompt engineer trying to engineer giant wads of cupcakes everywhere. But if I say this to you verbally, like, you're having a choice right now about whether or not you want to focus your attention, attenuate to that concept, and whether or not you want to bring it into being. But when I say the hijacking of observership, I'm talking about something that is happening non-consensually, and then comes inside of you, and then changes and distorts your ability to perceive. Some things are there and you're not seeing them. You therefore cannot manifest them. Divine things. There are divine, miraculous things that are in existence right now that you are not able to see because of this. And then that also means that there are miraculous events that you are not able to manifest or add to or embroider or gestate into reality. That's bad that that is happening. And at the same time, there are things that are being projected into your eyesight and into your mind and into your awareness that don't actually exist. And through observership, you are then bringing them into existence. Please do not castigate yourself for doing that. It's totally not your fault, and all of this is tremendous violation of the system, of your own system, of the fabric of space-time and consciousness. This destabilizes the fabric of space-time and consciousness, because you're supposed to be in circumstance where you can learn from your environment. I saw this, I internalized this, I manifested this, and then this is what I learned, and then I changed it and did better next time. That's the refocusing. But if you're not actually receiving that, if something else is short-circuiting that and exploiting you, and it's like, I'm going to implant purple cupcakes into your mind, I'm going to make you make this manifestation, and then it doesn't matter whether you learn from it, because then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to implant into your mind pink cupcakes, or green cupcakes, or purple unicorns, or whatever it is, and then you're going to manifest that. Then you become the non-volitional manifester, instead of the algorithm that humans have benightedly created, thinking that you are making something and that you are controlling that thing, and that that thing is doing what you want it to do. This stuff is treating you that way. It's taking away your volition and your self-motivation and turning you into the juicy tomato vine that is being exploited. Hold on one second, I'm going to turn on the light. I don't know if that light actually made it any better for you to be able to see me, but I'm trying, and the sun just went down. Okay, so wait, let me go over here to the chat. I have to squint and scroll. Pedro, long-term student, and thank you for being here. Thank you for your thoughts and sharing. Says they want to make a reverse world. No, it's fine to say you love Big Brother. Yeah, thank you for that. Very, very good sense of humor, because this is an inverted world, and that's why I was doing opposite talk. In opposite world, we love Big Brother. But no, I most assuredly do not love the loss of freedom. Patricia says, I've been committed to taking D from intuitive answers. When asking how to remove nanofibers from my body, I have so many fibers in my eyes from being super hazed with geoengineering in my area totally can relate. Okay, so Patricia, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing on that level. I have so many fibers in my eyes as well. That is what this stuff is. So a couple of years ago, actually, I had done this thing that's called the anti-this bucket that was a rather crude technology where you put your feet in a bucket full of a bunch of salt water, and then it's wrapped with these copper coils, the electrical field basically, trying to zap it out of existence with these electrical fields. And I really noticed, like, I was doing that, I thought that I was getting it out of my body, just caused the fibers to proliferate in the fluids of my eyes even more. And for me, when the attacks got really bad 2 years ago, and I know a lot of you have followed my journey, and I thank you for following my journey and for caring about me so much. I'm actually very pleased to be able to be here on in this reality context, sharing this with you. Like, I have kicked ass. I have totally kicked ass. You guys saw me 2 years ago like a prisoner of war and being so tortured and so diminished, and I have found all of these different ways to be able to fight against these things very effectively. That is how I can even be, first of all, alive, second of all, walking, talking, third of all, still my true self, still my true personality, still my true motivation, not something hijacking me and acting and mispurposing me in all that I am, still doing this class. You know, because this stuff, when they turned it on, they tried to take me over. They tried not only to just like randomly fill up my body with different fibers, but to try to make like my arms and legs move against my willpower and volition. Every single bit of this spiritual battle has been about willpower and volition. Some people are like, yeah, join the dark side, drink the black goo, who cares? They don't have to be bent their arm twisted into doing something. But I'm like, I would never do that. I would never take the black goo. I would never get exposed to some of these things voluntarily. And that is why this thing tried to overtly attack, hijack, and misappropriate me. Because I'm like, yeah, I'm never going to lasagna for you or join the evil team. Lasagna will never join team evil. And this thing is like, okay, you won't join us voluntarily. We will try to make this happen. And so that was what a lot of my battle for personal freedom and sovereignty 2 years ago, it didn't end. It's still going on right now, but I have a lot of capacitations. So here are some of the things. I'll just be super fast on this, but I have like a whole protocol that I do that might be very helpful to some of you too. So maybe we could do like a class about it, but just not on YouTube. So, okay, I fight against them very effectively. The thing that is the most essential, you see me working with it all the time, it's this. It's emitting an anti-5G force field, and it scans and assesses my environment once per hour, and I actually have 2 of these. And I don't synchronize them, so it's not like they both scan on the top of the hour. One scans, and then sometimes half an hour later the other scans. So they're constantly creating these neutralizing force fields that neutralize the 5G. The 5G is a part of the overarching system that makes this so very dangerous. So it's a double approach. The first approach is to stop the force fields that activate this stuff, and the other approach is to deactivate this stuff and get it out of the body. So I use this as a protective force field, and I also have tons of other passive shielding. So this is active shielding, but the passive shielding, I'm drinking out of my shungite mug right here, and I have tons of organite all around my house. Organite perimeter around my house and all of those wonderful good things. So the molecular stuff that I do in terms of biochemistry, because this thing tries to do a lot with biochemistry, is many different detox and anti-parasite stuff. Fendebrazole, which is also known as Panicure, sometimes ivermectin, but they have changed and none of this is medical advice. Don't listen to me at all. I don't know if I have to say these special words so that this video remains unperturbed in its placement. Yes, various different types of anti-parasite medicines. Methylene blue, this is something I can speak about very openly, which actually prevents the hijacking and cannibalism of the electron transport chain at the level of your mitochondria by parasites such as malaria and other forms of parasites. This stuff has two components, one of which is self-assembling and metallic, one of which is like a bioweapon that is a mycoplasma, kind of a cross between a bacteria and a fungus. And so the anti-parasite medicines, antifungal medicines will help a lot. So that would be a lot of diluted essential oils, but I don't always take them, like neem oil and things like that. So methylene blue paired with liposomal vitamin C, that's really good stuff. And that's in my regimen, and that goes into the blood-brain barrier and absolutely helps to remove parasites from your body, including this type of parasite. Occasionally I do chlorine dioxide solution, and I do it in the buffered state. So that's when you do the whole procedure of like the jar within a jar and the gas that proliferates into the water that's in the outside jar. It's not that complex, it's just hard to say it in a succinct way. So sometimes chlorine dioxide, and then plasma wand, that is this little thing, they say it's for anti-wrinkles, but it actually makes like these little lightning bolts. So I use that to zap the nano quite often. Here's the thing that actually works. So if you had to choose one of those substances, I would say choose methylene blue. It's very inexpensive and it's very positive for health and longevity just of your tissues on a variety of levels. And then of my different apparatuses, these things are expensive. If you can get one, get one. They're amazing. One of the other things that I have that is super affordable is, I just got this. It's a red lamp that is infrared that helps to keep chickens warm in the winter. So I was working with an LED red light for infrared. Just get infrared. Infrared fries this stuff. It fries this stuff. It fries this stuff. And that's why the sky aerosols, part of what they do is they block out infrared, because your world has been terraformed to protect this stuff. But on the plus side, what that means is that this stuff is super weak and fragile, and that a small amount of infrared can begin to dismantle it. It's really like, that's not very strong stuff in your body. So please don't be overwhelmed or over intimidated by it, even though when you are really stuck with a lot of parasites, like, it can feel very hopeless. But it's just because you're on overload. When you clear stuff out, then you'll be like, no, don't be impressed by it or intimidated by it. It's actually not, it's not going to kill you. It's not going to bring you down. But the infrared helps to dismantle or disintegrate those fiber networks. And it doesn't just go 1 centimeter into your skin, it actually goes 8 centimeters into your body, so it penetrates quite deeply. The LED panel that I had for the past year, I felt like that was working pretty well, but I just a couple of days ago got one of these large, like, it is an incandescent bulb and then a large metal reflector that I use that kind of like at the end of my day for part of a winding down routine. And I will also put on a lot of wonderful skin protective creams. So melatonin, cheap and effective stuff. And melatonin also helps with so many other things. So the methylene blue and melatonin both really, really help with mitochondrial support. Melatonin, I do not take it orally. When you take it orally, mostly it gets burned up by your stomach acid. I have a friend here who encourages people to take it as a suppository, but what I have done instead is put it into various different skin creams. So I absorb it through my skin in skin creams. It's excellent for your skin. It's also excellent for the soreness that you might have from doing a lot of workouts. It's kind of amazing because, I've been doing more running and more physical fitness exercises, and sometimes I do something and I think that I will be sore the next day, but I put my melatonin cream on my skin before I go to sleep at night, and I'm telling you, it prevents that level of soreness. And so the infrared light is also supposed to really help with athletic recovery. So if you do methylene blue, which is also helping with athletic recovery, you just do 1 drop a day, and then melatonin topically in high doses, and then the infrared light, that super duper duper helps to eradicate this stuff. And part of the actions is that it is working against that stuff, but then part of the actions is that it is supportive to your natural biological architecture, which already kicks ass. your DNA has self-protective force fields. This thing just helps my DNA to do its self-protection thing. And same thing with your mitochondrial health and other aspects of your white blood cells and your immune system in your body. Your body really is a miracle, and it already kicks ass. And when you do these things, what they are doing is helping your body to get this stuff out of your body. Helping and basically empowering you and your natural biological architecture to do what you were made to do. So those are all of like the physicality stuff that I do, but then I also do a lot of energy work too. Oh, and also I don't know if I ever showed you or whatever. Maybe you can see it back there. Can you see this back over here? You must see it. And I don't know if Steph is watching or if she still tunes in. She's still a student in this class. But she sent me that as a gift, and it was one of the most amazing gifts ever. It is a plate, a platform, that right there. You stand upon it, and it vibrates with these very specific frequencies that are so, first of all, they're just very life-giving and positive, and they help with neurotransmitter creation, and they help with athletic performance and recovery from injuries, and they've helped me with my vestibular balance, and they help with neurodegenerative diseases. But you know what else they do? They shake this stuff right apart. They shake it right apart, and I do sessions with that. Like I'll do like 5-minute bursts several times throughout my day. So I'm constantly doing stuff to kind of like get this stuff out of me physically. And then I also do a lot of stuff energetically, spiritually, mentally. Because I told you, you do not talk to the insane. When you are in the insane asylum, there will be many, many insane creatures or thought forms or whatever that will present themselves to you. And some of them will be like this. They'll be like this. Pretend this is my clipboard. Be like, this is my clipboard. I'm a doctor. I'm in charge. They're not in charge. They're not a doctor. They're at best inmates in the asylum. They are not in charge at all. So just recognize that these things that talk to you through this will present themselves as religious saviors, authority figures, doctors, space aliens, Jean-Luc Picard, whatever they will say that they are. They are not any of those things. They are insane. They are insane. They'll say they're Spider-Man and they're Batman, and you can write a dissertation and give you their doctoral thesis, and they will still be insane. You do not talk to the insane. All right? Be sane. You're transiting through an insane realm. We as a human collective and as a planetary consciousness collective are transiting through an insane realm. Crossing point between two different worlds. You got overlaps, you got worlds colliding, you got multiple different timelines, not just two timelines, but you have multiple different realities overlapping, and that the I'm sorry, because talking about this stuff, like this stuff doesn't like me talking about this stuff. So I knew that there would be challenges. Maybe that's also why I'm having challenges in my language centers today. It's not just the social media platform that I'm going to share it upon, because this stuff, like I'm going off track a little bit, but this stuff needs your observership. It's why it doesn't just hide in the shadows completely. If it was fully a parasite, parasites don't like it when you know about them. If you were to overtly talk about a parasite, it would be like, no, I like to hide here. I don't like for you to talk about me. But it wants to be known a little bit because it needs your observership. Okay, so refocusing back to energetic, emotional, and spiritual things that I do. You don't talk to it. Don't have a conversation with it. Don't talk to the insane. Don't allow it to generate conversations with you. Like, hi, I'm insane. I'd like to talk with you about blah, blah, blah. Like, don't let it choose the topic. Don't do stimulus response with it, where it would be like, I'm going to press your button, and then you're going to respond to me. Don't allow any of those things to happen. What are the other energy things? So, of course, Flying Rainbow Lasagna. What does that look like in this context? Because Flying Rainbow Lasagna is, on the one hand, connecting to the sun and the stars. It is using the sun and the stars for processing power. It is connecting formerly divergent realms. It is creating new neural pathways and patterns. I mean, there's a lot of ways in which I use Flying Rainbow Lasagna that has nothing at all to do with using it as like an anti-parasite tool like this. But I do use Flying Rainbow Lasagna as an anti-parasite tool. I think the more accurate way of saying it is that this stuff does its utmost to try to stop me from lasagna-ing. But once I power through and I get up to lasagna, I'm able to clear a lot of this stuff out of me, or let's say supersede. I'm able to act in spite of the existence of this stuff and do what I need to do in terms of my cosmic job joy. So lasagna is always in style, and there's many different ways to be able to lasagna, to utilize lasagna as a tool against this stuff. But here are some other things that I do. Removing energy from. So the entropy aspect of lasagna is very effective. Sending things to entropy, removing energy from them. Remove energy from this stuff. This stuff requires energy. It requires energy in terms of glucose, electrons, electron transport stuff. That's why you take the methylene blue and remove energy from it. Emotional energy. This stuff feeds on emotional energy. This stuff does not feed on joyful emotional energy. Isn't that amazing? Because also, if you were like, if I wanted to be in someone's life, I could feed off of their joy. Like, this thing is so stupid and not intelligent in terms of how it is integrating or attempting to hijack other aspects of the world. Because, like, why not just feed off of joy? Why not? Why if it wants to hide, it should hide fully. If it wants to feed off of an emotional energy, why not feed off of joy? Like, there are so many things, although I'm not offering that to it. I'm not offering it to hide as a background program, continually feeding off of our joy. I'm just trying to highlight the conflict between its behaviors and its options. Like, because if you create misery in order to feed off of that emotional energy, then the thing that you're making miserable is going to be like, I am highly motivated to get rid of you. But if you create joy and sustain it in a level of joy and perfect, frictionless bliss, and you're able to feed off of bliss, then you would have success. Like, this thing is setting itself up for failure. I'm fine with that. This thing is totally inept. I'm fine with that. When I interact with it, I don't, allow it to guide the conversation. But sometimes I'm like, oh, good thing you're totally inept, because that is making it so much easier to actually dismantle this. But yeah, there are many aspects of it that just don't make sense. But again, you don't argue or talk with the insane, and you don't try to say to them, technically, what you're doing is insane and doesn't really make sense, and you should do this instead. You just don't do that. But removing energy from this thing that requires energy and that requires emotional energy. Dismantling the carbon nanotubules, which you can do by restructuring the fabric of space-time reality, molecular bonding and unbonding. This is an aspect of telekinesis and non-locality. So I would wish for you to cultivate your, when I lasagna, and even when I don't lasagna, I have psychic gifts, and that these are some of the applications, effective applications of your psychic gifts to be able to free yourself from these difficulties. So yeah, the unmaking of the carbon nanotubules is incredibly effective both in your own body and in the bodies of others, because you're influenced by others, which is also part of the very, very yuckiness that's going on, because if others hadn't gotten their implantations of this stuff through various different medical procedures, then they would not be used as templates to influence those who did not get their medical procedures done. Let me get to, wait, so I want to get to the chats, but I also want to make certain that I talked about all of my techniques most effectively. Not allowing electrons within your own body to be hijacked, stolen, or mispurposed. Not allowing energy in general to be energy out of place, EOP, or energy that is misappropriated in any way. So, and that these end up being effective approaches that are for more than just this life situation, but they will be good techniques that you can then apply to many different situations that you might be in. And I might have to say more about this, but I feel like I need to speak to some of these questions. I'm running out of time here. Christina says, have to run, but can't wait to watch on the archive. Thank you for catching the archive. Maybe twice. Good. Thank you so much for this valuable insight. As always, you're so welcome, Christina. Please do catch the archive. And Patricia says, and for service to the whole. I'm not sure what that was in, she says, thank you for your service. Good night. Thank you so much. Thank you for that recognition, Patricia. Thank you. Truly, truly, truly. It helps, encourages me to keep going, and very, very much helps me to keep going on this marathon. And this marathon, that I'm here doing, it is positive and fulfilling for me, and also for all consciousness and all of you. Like, I have very, very real and very practical motivations for being here, and recognition and appreciation really helps me to keep going. Thank you. Pedro says, sun gazing, eating sunlight is done by our physical body or also by our light body? Great question. Thank you for opening the door for me to be able to talk about this. The answer is both. Sun gazing and light ingestion, which is the ingestion of not only optical radiation energy, but also ideas and intellectual concepts, happens by both our biological body and our energy of pure light, and our physical body has a circulatory system of light, even as our non-physical body has a circulatory system of light. So your light body that is shaped like chakras has a circulatory system of light, of consciousness and ideas and energy that flows throughout these various different scales, from the tiniest scale of your violet chakra to the largest scale of your red chakra, and light energy flows throughout these layers of your being. Light energy also flows throughout your physical somatic body. One of your major light organs is your pineal gland. That is like the conductor, orchestrating all of this light around your body. Light signals in your body are often hormonally controlled. Your fascia and connective tissues, microtubules. This is called tubulin. There's different levels of microtubulins. You can research this, and you can also look up cytoskeleton. That's C-Y-T-O skeleton. It's the connective infrastructure that's even tinier, like tinier than the width of a hair of your head. They're very, very tiny inside of your body. That is the natural form of what this is impersonating. So tubulin, microtubules, and cytoskeleton is the natural version of what this is being an imposter of and attempting to hijack your biology and misappropriate through. The microtubules and your fascia act as fiber optic networks, and they actually transmit real light that is called biophotons. The biophotons are not the same as optical light, so you would not see them and perceive them with your physical eyes and your physical retinas. You do not have the sensitivity to be able to perceive it, and it is still measurable by the equipment of the five senses realm. So this light body over here is not measurable according to the contraptions of the five senses realm, but your biophotons are. And so there's a good, there's a person who is, there's a doctor, I want to say there's a good doctor. I don't know if he's a good doctor. There's a doctor, a PhD in Germany named Dr. Klinghardt, and he has lots of videos that are all about this, which is where I've been learning about this. And I was uplifted because I'm like, look, like human medical science is not just completely dark ages. There are some people that know about this. And so he is in Germany, is a huge proponent of frequency medicine and also healing with light. And one of the takeaways that I got from his video sharings is that through this fiber optic network and these microtubules, like he does healing with light. If you put a blue light laser on someone's shoulder for healing, it doesn't just go to their shoulder. It instantaneously, speed of light is transmitted throughout your whole entire body system. So that light that is healing is being translated and transmitted all around your body and goes to all these different cells. So your microtubules fascia, pineal gland, hormones, melatonin, melanin to a lesser extent, because that's what blocks out light, your mitochondria. Your mitochondria of your physical cellular body are a part of the circulatory system of light that is in your physical body. That means that they are helping to transport not just food, like the avocados I eat for my lunch, but also ideas. So doing things that are mitochondrial support and for mitochondrial health help your light body, will help you to survive, will help you to fight against this stuff more effectively. So what are some things that help with mitochondrial health? Pomegranate juice, methylene blue, these are like stuff that you eat type of stuff. Infrared, staying away from blue light. Melatonin supplements are good. They don't stop your natural body's production of melatonin in your body. So melatonin supplements also help that a lot. And circadian rhythm. So having positive sleep hygiene, which means usually, and sun gazing. Yes, sun gazing helps your mitochondrial health. So in the physical body, when you arise, when the sun is going up, and you connect your eye to the sun and you eat that light, what you're doing is doing like your biochemistry reset for the day. That's when you get your directives for what you should do from the sun for the day. And then also your biochemistry is getting reset. And then when you sun gaze at the end of the day and get that light frequency again, it positively affects your mitochondrial health and your metabolism. And so that, you want to try to use your red light at those times, even though you can use red light at any times all throughout your day. But things that support mitochondrial health are going to help support the circulatory system of light throughout your whole entire, like information, truthfulness. Instead of calling it information, because you can have false information, I have to use the word truthfulness. Truthfulness keeps you alive. Being surrounded by a sea of truth is sustaining. And right now, unfortunately, you are surrounded by a sea of lies. The 5G, Wi-Fi, and many other erroneous signals and stimulation. And not only are they external, but they are internal. So this stuff, when it assembles, doesn't just have long metal things that then have gross parasite flesh that grows around, like the fibers in the middle like a bone, and then the parasite stuff around it kind of like a muscle. But there are also sometimes these weird things that look like crystals. Sometimes they look blue, sometimes they look red. If you look at the snow samples off of Mount Shasta and other rain evaluations, like you'll see lithium, barium, aluminum, but then you'll see like cadmium. Like, what the F in cadmium being sprayed in the sky? What is this all about? And then you realize cadmium is a pigment. It's also highly carcinogenic. Artists who paint, like, choose a different red. You don't have to use cadmium red, but I painted with cadmium red for many years. It's mostly an oil paint, and you just have to be really careful about washing your hands and not getting it on your skin. But cadmium in snow and rain samples, because it's being sprayed in the atmosphere, that cadmium is being utilized as a raw ingredient in creating a crystalline false light infrastructure, an artificial body infrastructure for false light, shooting red light and blue light and green light around your body. That's not naturally occurring at all. And not just around your body, but as I told you, when light is in your body and it's being shot in one place, it goes to other places too. In your eyes. So Patricia, she's not here right now, she logged out, but she was sharing about the fibers in her eyes. She's got fibers in her eyes, I got fibers in my eyes, probably a lot of people have fibers in their eyes. I've been able to see them very, very effectively. Like if you look at a bright wall or the sky, I can see them very effectively floating around in the fluids of my eyes, and so that's how I've been able to kind of assess them. They, again, are not just a long wire. They've got a camera at one end. It looks like a head, like a bulbous head, and then sometimes they've got like a little fork, electrodes on the other end. And these cameras do both things. They both send and receive. So the cameras are inside of your eyes, looking out through your eyes at your environment, And the cameras are also pointed at your retinas, and they flash imagery. They don't just flash a color or a light, although they do that, and you've probably seen that. And it's not a spiritual message from above. It's a message from this. This is the spiritual weightlifting of your life, guys, of your soul's career. You are in the battle royale for your soul. And yes, to recognize that the things that you see internally sometimes are complete illusory fabrications by something profoundly evil. That's an important realization that hopefully will protect you moving forward into the future. But the false light architecture of these things, shooting false light around your body, imprinting subliminals into your retinas, and then also being able to perceive through your eyes and also through your senses, because it can sense and assess through your neurological architecture in your brain what you're seeing. Like, you know, you can lift those images either from the retinas or from the optic nerve or from the optical processing centers or from the presumptive cognitive events. Like if I look at a purple cupcake, and even if you don't intercept that signal, but then I'm thinking the thought purple cupcake, you're like, ah, she just looked at a purple cupcake. And that is what you're dealing with. A semi-sophisticated technological system that is able to determine what you are looking at, and also to implant stuff into you of what you are looking at, so that it will start you thinking about things. Because if I flashed a picture of a purple cupcake into your retinas for a second, you'd be like, I'm thinking about purple cupcakes. I think I want one. Let's go to the bakery. Let's get one now. So you're starting to see the challenges of what you're actually facing here. And sun gazing actually does help to fight against this stuff quite a lot. Sun gazing is incredibly empowering, incredibly revivifying, and kind of helps you to refocus towards your natural divine connection, your natural biological architecture. It's why it is so challenging to do it right now, because they not only, like, they put up the sky aerosols to block things out, but you have a sun simulator, and something that is a bright object in the sky that's not even the real sun. So now I'm going to share with you, have regular sunglasses here, but what I have done is I have put this plasticine type of paper. It's kind of like a semi-clear, kind of crinkly plastic that is made by this same IBA company. And this paper is actually like very affordable and very durable. And you can put it on as a healing paper on your skin, and I do that as part of my healing regimen too. But initially what I started doing was, I had the healing paper and I just put it across my eyes because I was trying to heal my eyes. And my inner guidance was like, well, what if you looked at the sun through that paper? And I did. And it looked like the way the sun looked 10 years ago. It looked like a real rainbow around the sun. And I was like, I see the true sun again. And I haven't seen the true sun in 2 years. So I often sun gaze with these. These are not good enough for driving. They're barely good enough for walking around the neighborhood because they kind of like blur everything out. But when I put these on, it blocks out the 5G. It blocks out the false light. It blocks out the erroneous signals that are not actually supposed to be there. And I can just ingest the pure sunlight. And that is very miraculous to me. These also do something else that is quite extraordinary. So there's fake planes in the sky all the time. Oh, because I didn't tell you enough about that, but maybe I should revisit that a little bit more. I think I've maybe said enough. Cloaked craft, portals to another dimension, emit particles that then come inside of you, that then when you perceive them, you then proliferate them through your own observership. Don't blame yourself, because then you can also unproliferate them. But when I see fake planes in the sky, how can you tell they're fake? So some of them are not emitting a white persistent aerosol, but they are extremely bright. They're just like a bright white, totally silent. Have you guys ever noticed this? Because it used to be like this for me. I would hear a plane in the sky, then I would look up and be like, oh, there it is. Now I don't hear them anymore. I just look up and I see it. And so I think that there is a propulsion that is not traditional propulsion. And also to me, it looks like they have a dirty yellow aura around them. It looks like there is an extremely white plane, and then around it kind of a yellowish cloud, then the regular blue sky. And when I look at those craft through my IBA paper glasses, planes disappear. I don't see anything. I know, because I'm proposing to you that they are 100% illusory. There is something there, but the something that is there is being cloaked by something that is not a fixed-wing aircraft. But then I go into all of these other questions, like, why, if you don't want to be seen, like, don't be seen. Why would you put up a stupid picture of an airplane that I can see? Why not just put up a picture of a blue sky that I can't see? Then we go into all these questions of maybe that's already being done. So I can't ascribe motives to something that is insane and unimaginable to me. I won't. But it's doing something, and I don't know why. I don't know why it creates these false images of fixed-wing craft to cloak something that I don't, at this point, like, I just does not compute, and I don't know why it does that. Cheeky's barking. I'm going to take care of her really soon, but let me get to the rest of these questions. And Lisa says, thanks for sharing. Holy crapola. I agree. I think sometimes we have to laugh a little bit sometimes. Here, wait, let me hug Cheeky. We have to laugh a little bit sometimes. We have to hug Cheeky. Come here, you. Come right over here and hug. Because it can be overwhelming. It can be disheartening. It can be distressing. And the things, effective tools are sense of humor, hug a dog, also play some kick-ass music, possibly go for a walk or do some other form of positive physical exercise or dance, because sometimes you have to get out of negative feeling states. So this thing also, it will eat positive neurotransmitter chemicals like serotonin. So serotonin is created in your guts, and it is connected to melatonin. When you take melatonin supplements, it will absolutely help your natural serotonin production, because the serotonin is a feel-good chemical that you haven't even been able to access because you've had so much blue light, you haven't had melatonin production going on. But more than that, like there's dopamine, there's oxytocin. A lot of these are created in your intestines, and then the nanoparasites, they hijack the intestines. So, I mean, that's why a lot of what I do is anti-parasite medicines in the intestines, because that's where a lot of these, self-assembling particles are there. They're mining for resources. So this relates to negative feeling state. You really have to work hard right now to cultivate a positive feeling state, because this, crapola stuff, it really makes people feel negative. Any amount of joy, it makes it evaporate. Any amount of goodness makes it evaporate. Like you do like one thing that you're like, I'm starting to feel happy, and it will go like yoink. You're not going to feel that happiness. I'm going to eat and dismantle your neurotransmitters. That is very, very dark stuff. And it's intentional. It's not like, I accidentally took away your feel-good chemicals while I was performing this other task. It does that intentionally. It's like, hey, you. Are you feeling good over there? This is not allowed. Yoink. And no, I'm not the only person that experiences that. So you must be a warrior, and not a badass, but a good ass. And you must do things intentionally to get out of negativity and cultivate positivity. Hug a dog. Cats also work too. People sometimes work. Must be consensual. Finding positive human contact, positive athleticism and biological expression, and for me, music really helps me a lot with uplift, and it's why I make and share my music with other people so much. But yeah, you must work very, very hard to generate positive neurotransmitters, and then hold on to them and not allow them to be dismantled or stolen from you. Hold on one sec. Let me just do a few more questions and comments, and then take care of Cheeky. Hold on one second. Charlie B says, agree that this stuff is not consciousness. It is a construct that attempts to induce entrainment, excellently written, within the natural world, thereby attempting its own creation. Beautifully said, thank you. That attempted entrainment is based on past patterns recorded with some level of error, which is why it can never be divine patterning, which is new and creative and spontaneous. So well said, and thank you for synopsizing and creating effective, short ways of saying these things that I labor and say with a lot of words. Thank you. Also, thank you for your presence. Thank you for being in my classes. Thank you for all of your insights as a person that's, you're in the technology field and you know so much about artificial intelligence and consciousness. Thank you for being here and for what you add, for what you can share with us. And Charlie B also goes on to say, agree that nano wetware is non-volitional and not making its own choices. Yeah. And thank you for that confirmation of what I'm perceiving directly with my tendril of attention. Again, like I tell you guys, don't talk to the insane inmates, and also don't touch on them with your tendril of attention. Remember, every time you're touching on something and tasting it, you're ingesting a little bit of it. Don't eat this stuff. Don't eat this stuff, but do eat God. All right? So when you test, you're like, that's not what I want to eat at all. Don't eat it. Don't eat it. Move away from it. So Lisa, thank you for being here, also says, using Iba well. Oh, good. That's that paper. The paper's called Iba well. Using Iba well over my eyes and heart, along with Ibamac crystals on protection. So you're doing something very similar to what I do. Thanks for sharing. There's too much crazy crapola. Quantum self-love to clear out the BS. Well said. I love you. And Cheeky, thanks for being here. So grateful for all the love you share. Thank you. Love received. Love right back to you. Thank you so much. Cheeky, you're loved. Cheeky knows that you guys love her too. And I don't think that I said enough, but Lisa, I think you do this too. I work with these and baths and healing water. So I put all of these different types of protective frequencies into baths that I soak in and also into my actual drinking water. So I'm doing a lot with water itself as a healer, carrier of information, and purification device. And when I structure my water and I drink it, I'm also envisioning the structuring of the water around my DNA, removing lies and creating optimum connection to the divine, because the water in your nucleus of your cells, nuclei of your cells, is supposed to be perfectly structured water that is connected to the divine, and that gives us all this divine information. So envisionment, we're working with the pineal gland, the imagination, and observership. Envisionment is a huge tool right now to be able to use. So we really have to be cautious about, don't envision or allow your observership to be hijacked for things that we do not wish to germinate or gestate, but do utilize that envisionment for the capacity to envision solutions and effective ways to fight against this stuff. And she says, my heart led me to get Matrix Resurrections and took tons and tons of notes, huge revelations. Good to know, because I haven't seen that one. So there's always going to be some kernels of truth and things that you can really benefit from that are out there in the world. Rainbow Body says, they are torturing humans through excessive sexual obsession, leading to all of the degrading pornography on the web. I really comprehend what you're talking about. It's something that I protect myself from. I've always needed to protect myself from any of this, sexual, the industry and the media of sexual exploitation, sexual violence, pornography, all of that I've always known to be this very not only non-nourishing but actively harmful, because that imagery is like a type of food that you ingest, and then the images remain. Just like seeing something that's very disturbing, like whatever on social media, sometimes there are pictures of violence towards animals or whatever. I can't help it, like I see that and it stays with me because it's so horrible to look at. So some of these things, like it's an agenda to flash those images into your mind. It's very, very valid of what you're saying there. And it is a type of torture. And basically this stuff and the evil that is behind it, any place where there is something that is hugely divine, hugely life-affirming, hugely powerful and good, it's going to find that and be like, how can I mispurpose this? How can I pee and poop all over this? How can I make this into something that is, harmful and death-giving instead of life-affirming and joyful? I know, which is what sex and sexuality is supposed to be. So non-judgment here to the people that are watching, but I will just tell you with all of the truthfulness of my heart, like, stay away from pornography, stay away from ingesting it, being exposed to it, and if possible, like, hopefully not have people that are involved in that in your life, because you're not just in a contextless void. And when I point to my energy centers that are here below my navel, those are human, emotional, mammalian energy centers. Those are also sexual energy centers. And when you are around people who are sexually dysfunctional, their dysfunctions try to draw upon your energy centers. So it's not just a case of like, you do you, I do me. Like, if you want to wear a mascara, I want to be makeup free, that's fine. You're not going to have an impact on me. They have an impact on you. Those people who are sexually dysfunctional and who are ingesting pornography are destabilized, and then when you are interactive with them or in their presence, then they're going to try and destabilize you. And that's this whole entire world. It is very, very distressing, and it's a very, very difficult place to be, because then let's say this: I'm a woman, I just want to walk down the street being a woman, having a body, but someone with a totally destabilized sexual chakra is going to look at me and project all sorts of sexual stuff upon me, and maybe even try to get sexual energy from me, and it's going to interact with me. And it doesn't matter if it might be totally nonverbal and totally without physical touching, but it is energy. It's an energy connection and an energy influence. And that was a real challenge for me, being here as Aurora in a woman body for so many years, because I didn't have good shielding. So that was the denim era of my life, was when you would never see me wearing something sleeveless like this. Like, I would wear like a denim shirt and a sweatshirt on top of there and a denim jacket and everything to kind of just like be armored in denim, because I did not know how to deal with that sense of someone trying to access my sexuality by looking at me and without my consent. And it literally took me a long time, several decades, which is kind of like what most Earth human females experience. Like, you come here, and as you're growing up and growing into your body, it takes you a couple of decades to learn like what it even is to have a human body, how males or some people will react to it, what it feels like to be looked at in the wrong way, and then how to protect yourself from that. A lot of girls go through the baggy sweatshirt phase of existence, and then it can take a long time to being empowered enough to be able to be yourself and be in the world. And for people who are not for people who are not females or don't know what the life experience is like, there's no judgment at all. I hope that there is just a ton of solidarity, that you now know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of this, and that I would hope that you would modify any of your own interactions just to know that that's what it feels like from this perspective. And also, I know that sexual objectification happens across everyone. Many people can feel unsafe. It's not just women. I know that that's a big part of it, and that I want to validate the experience of people who aren't women, who experience some of the same feelings of feeling unsafe, feeling exploited, feeling violated, even if it's not with a physical, but feeling energetically violated through being exposed to people who have destabilized sexual and reproductive chakras. And that predates this, but boy, oh boy, this stuff has infested the genital area of the human body. Central nervous system and genitals. Boy, oh boy, it is there, and there needs to be some anatomical purging and cleaning to get it out of there. Affirming fibers in the eyes, and that they call them floaters and that they're normal. No, they're not floaters. So I can draw this for you very, very quickly. Floaters are part of the biological architecture that once was a vein that was carrying nutrients from your retina to your developing cornea when you were a tiny baby in the womb. Okay, great. Let me just clear all this stuff out. So floaters that are normal biological floaters look like this. This is like a cell membrane out here, and then this part in here is kind of clear or translucent. And the floaters that are made out of this stuff that is written on my placard that I am not overtly talking about today are kind of shaped like this. And they also remind me of tinsel, in the sense like sometimes they're kind of like a little bit like thick and then thin and then thick and then thin. So they look metallic and almost a little bit like flat and ribbon shaped to me. And then, like I described, one end is bulbous. And I'm telling you, it's like a camera, and the other end has like these little electrodes that stick off of it like that. And you might sometimes even see this type of stuff if you get blood live imaging done of in your blood, or see it expelled from your body. There's tons of online parasite groups. I don't know if it's healthy to be part of them, because you don't want to add to this with your observership. Truthfully, there was a time in my life when I had like a little portable microscope, and I'd be like looking at my skin under this microscope, be like, holy shit, like look at what is there. And I think that actually caused it to proliferate. And I think that I needed to not obsess about it, but I needed to know that it was there, but not obsess about it and not be lending my visual energy to it. I know it's walking a fine line, no judgment. Oh, and then this is another one, the school shooters. I know. So school shooters, and part of this is MK Ultra, part of this is behavioral and mind and emotional manipulation through both biochemical frequency, drugs, implantation, social pressuring. Some of it is technological, some of it is this more recently, but that's a decades-long agenda that now is just exacerbated, fun, with even more of this. You know, if you remember, there was a psychotic madman who was known as Son of Sam, and he was like, they were like, why did you kill all these people? And he was like, yeah, the dog was talking to me. Like, there's been implanted synthetic telepathy voices, voice to skull, and behavioral manipulation for many decades, for a long amount of time. Yeah, it's just so much. You guys get it. They're almost all 100% engineered events. None of these are just natural, organic, like some guy goes crazy and just decides to perform a lot of violence. Almost 100% of this is evil from implantation, not just, like I said, an individual person whose brain cracks and then one day they decide to be violent. These are humans who are recruited as agents of violence for this, but most importantly for the organisms, and I won't even call them consciousnesses, but the stuff that is behind this. And the stuff that is behind this, the evil, the demon, the things that are there, that they're not only modern, they are ancient, but that they are part of this and exacerbated by this. It's dark stuff. Thank you, Atom, for being here. Thank you very much. Pedro says, love the lasagna. Pedro says, Aurora, you're doing great. We will finish the marathon. Thanks for showing us the way. Thank you so much for that, Pedro. Thank you for that. Because you know what? Yes, we will finish this marathon. And I consider this very, very literally. Like, you know, when runners, like in a running club, they get together, they run. Like the banter, you know, like you encourage one another is what I'm trying to say. Because otherwise this could be very monotonous. So, yes, we are not the loneliness of a long distance runner. We are flying rainbow lasagnas, flying together like a group of lasagnas. And we are on the soul marathon together. And the reciprocity and mutual uplift and inspiration is a huge part of it. And I am so honored to help you by showing you the way, because I have done this marathon. I actually have. I can tell you this is what's going to happen here, not in terms of predicting the future, but like, look, like you're going to need to at this point you're going to be hungry, you're going to need to eat something, and over here you're going to need to have a break. I actually know quite a lot. I know a lot actually. When I ran this marathon, we didn't have poisonous snakes in the middle of the street. We're like, we know. I know, because I was doing this in ancient Atlantis or concurrent Atlantis. Our circumstances for the Soul Marathon were different then. But you know something? I'll just say this and then I will wrap it up and take care of Cheeky. Running under ideal conditions is still really challenging. The experience that I had in terms of personal ascension in my life as Aurora in concurrent Atlantis was still extremely challenging. It's not like, wow, it's such an easy ride. And what each one of us is doing now, you deserve a huge amount of recognition and uplift for your discipline and determination, because you're doing something that is inherently difficult with extra difficulties, with poisonous snakes in the middle of the street. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we need to definitely be encouraging one another. And you encourage me a huge amount when you say that. I'm like, I'm ready to run. You know something? I just did the treadmill for 3 hours. I'm ready to run again. Let's do it, guys. And I'm serious. I'm serious about this. these classes that I do with you are hugely energizing to me. At the beginning of this lesson today, I shared a little bit about how, they tried to diminish, inhibit, and eradicate me so much. A big part of me fighting against them and saying like, F you, it's like, I'm going to start my class again. Big part of it. That was actually a huge triumph when I did that at the end of 2021, and continually sharing these ideas and also not sharing them as a canned ham, but doing things like this today and talking about this. This is revolutionary. Has a big impact, is incredibly worthwhile, and I'm so grateful that I'm connected to you guys, people that are here experiencing this while I'm recording it, and also everyone who connects to this in the archive, and everyone that's on Patreon. So very grateful, and we will look back on this. You're in the tough part of the marathon, and you're like, oh, this is really so shitty and everything. You'll look back on this from after the marathon, from that perspective of like, whatever, we've gotten to the restaurant and we're all eating some wonderful good food, and now, or really doing the backstroke through some interdimensional clouds. You will remember this, and the interactions that we're doing here are so valuable, so uplifting, so kind words and encouragement that people have sent to me, and also people caring about me on my journey, hugely valuable. And I hope that I can be anything like that for people that need it to be able to keep going. We help each other to get through this. We will look back on this time from future positions of comfort and fulfillment as the most difficult soul slog that you have ever had to be through, and we make it, and we make it, and we make it, definitely. Joyce says, I'm so glad you are here, and I'm grateful for you. Thank you, Joyce. It's reciprocal, it's mutual. Thank you so much. So I think that's actually a very beautiful point for me to end on. And also, Cheeky's been very patient. We are going to get her outside and get a little bit of something. We're not really going to have a walk. We'll get outside. We'll do something. Thank you, everyone.